call to order the meeting of July 17th of Joshua Basin Water District. And I would like Director Reynolds, if you would, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Well, thank you. I would be honored. Please join me at this honorable moment. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone. And with that, we have a quorum. General Manager.
President Johnson with Board Directors present, you have a quorum.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, item number 5, public comment. Members of the public may address the board at this time with regard to matters within the board's jurisdiction that are not listed on the agenda. State law prohibits the board of directors from discussing or taking action on items not included on the agenda. Members of the public will have an opportunity for public comment on any item listed on the agenda when it is addressed on the agenda. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less, or are there any public comments? Yes, ma'am.
Karen Tracy, ratepayer and chairperson of the Citizens Advisory Committee. Following the July 9th meeting of the CAC, I am delivering the meeting report during public comment in order to make a time-sensitive statement. I consulted with staff regarding this. The CAC deliberated and agreed upon our recommendations for the appointment to the vacant board position. Gail Austin and Tom Flowen have both served on the committee and proven themselves knowledgeable in Joshua Basin water policy and objective and tactful during group discussions. Either of them would come with strong CAC recommendation. The remainder of the report itself is brief. We appointed our Vice Chair, Tom Kane, to also serve as secretary and record minutes for our meetings. This was our first meeting with the new general manager. We leaned into it with a great get acquainted, come to work with correct attitude. Topics ranged from time between meetings to relevance and name of the committee to applications and guidelines for committee members, which generates paperwork that I will have completed and present next month. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Al Marquez, Sun Pure Community. I noticed that this meeting was supposed to be held as a regular meeting at 6:30 this evening, and it was moved up to 5 o'clock today as a special meeting. And it really amuses me that they keep on violating, or not violating, but violating the Ralph M. Brown Act and Government Code 54950 to have a special meeting that is not warranted. And I won't say why the meeting was changed. The president said that he was aware that it was going to be changed as a special meeting, but you know, you kind of sliding the deal on having your meetings when they're supposed to be regular meetings at 6:30, and that doesn't give the community a chance to come here for the meetings at a specified time, and it's really not a special meeting. If it was a special meeting, you would have maybe 1 or 2 items that you would have on the agenda, but your agenda is the same as a regular meeting. So it's going by the Brown Act, again, like I say, on that government code that I just read out, it's not really ethical about what this district and the board is doing. And also want to make a comment right now about item 12. I would like to make a comment before the board entertains a motion on that board for a second, and I'll make a comment on that item. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? And seeing none, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items on item 6. Special meetings June 18th, 19th, regular meeting on the 19th, April, May check registry.
President Johnson,
Sorry.
I just wanted to let you know, because I was absent for the meetings on the 19th, I'll be abstaining from those, but otherwise,
All right.
I support the consent calendar.
Or any other comments?
The salary schedule, you gonna pull that, or are you gonna keep it on the consent
It
calendar?
was on the consent calendar, unless there's some direct questions from the board. It was reviewed in the finance committee, and we discussed it at that point.
I looked through the consent calendar as well, through the minutes, as well as the check register. I had several questions on the check register, and I had a conversation on the phone with Mark Band, and he answered every one of them to my satisfaction. So with that, I'm willing to make the motion that we approve the consent calendar.
I'd like to make a small correction to the special meeting of June 18th. Do we approve the consent calendar first and then make a correction, or?
No, you should make the correction.
And it's really tiny. The special meeting on June 18th was on a Tuesday, not a Wednesday. And,
While you're doing that, President Johnson, could I ask a question about this of council? Quick question. Since I was not present at the meeting, I'm assuming I could vote to approve the entire consent calendar because I did review the meeting minutes. Is
If you
that-
so choose.
Okay, well then I'll just do
You
that.
don't have to,
Otherwise-
because we do have three, but Gary, if you wanted to, you could.
Yeah, otherwise we would have to split it, right, if I was abstaining from one? Okay, I'm suggesting we make a motion on the whole thing and I'll.
Right, okay. With the corrections.
With the
that-
corrections.
With the corrections, yeah.
Is that the only correction, Director Unger?
that's the only one I saw, yeah.
All right, with that, I have a motion. Is there a second? To approve the consent calendar as it is?
I second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved, so done. Item number 7, board appointment to fill board vacancy. It's recommended that the board of directors conduct interviews of candidates for the vacant board seat and to make appointment by a majority vote. We have 4 candidates, or 4 applicants. Ms. Gail Austin, Wesley Bow-Smith, excuse me, Paul Coate, and Tom Flowen. And I will turn it over to the general manager.
Thank you. The board will have an opportunity tonight to interview each of the 4 candidates, at which time the floor will be open for public comment. Directors will then be given an opportunity to comment following that. Following directors' comments, in order to nominate one of the candidates, a member of the board will have to make a motion to appoint the candidate, and then the motion must receive a second, followed by a roll call in order to make the appointment. Our first candidate is Gail Austin, who will be joining us by phone this evening.
And Gail is on the line now, is that correct, Gail?
Yes, sir, I'm right here.
All right, good to hear your voice. I think we'll start off with Director Hund, if I may, and I'll let him go ahead and speak.
Are we supposed to be out, the other candidates, are we supposed to be out in the room?
I don't think so.
I think I
You're,
recall.
you're entitled, the board cannot legally ask you to vacate the room.
That's what you did previously, yes.
But
Would you
Can't
like to be
require
if
outside?
you wanted to voluntarily, you could. It's up to the board if you want to permit.
Can't require.
If anybody, okay.
That way it doesn't give.
The board cannot excuse anybody from this room legally, but if you wanted to if you wanted to abide by past policy and voluntarily excuse yourself from each interview, you could. It's strictly at your own free will.
I'm going.
Okay. But the record should reflect, Beverly, that it's voluntarily leaving the room.
We'll be able to hang out.
Please come back, though.
All right.
You look much different tonight, Gail.
Is there a picture of her?
All right, with that, we'll go ahead to the 2 of the other candidates, stepped out, 1 remaining, and we'll start with Director Hund.
Okay, well, what I first want to say is, Gail, you don't have to worry, you've left an indelible image in my mind, and it's a wonderful one. And I hope you're having a good time there in Texas. So,
I am, thank you.
good. So we have a series of questions for you all tonight, and I've been asked to start. So the first question that we have for you is, what do you foresee as the challenges that the district may face in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh my gosh, these are all the questions that I wrote my answers down, and I don't have my answers with me. I thought it would be different questions for this.
Well, then, with that in mind, we'll ask Director Hun to creatively come up with a couple questions or a question that he'd like to ask of his own.
Okay.
So, what do you foresee? No, I'm kidding.
I mean, I gave a really good answer on paper, and I don't think I can copy that off the cuff. Is all
Okay,
I've got.
I got you. We'll look at your paper answers. So, Gail, I know that you've been attending meetings for a long time, the board meetings, and participating in the Citizens Advisory Committee. And I'm going to ask the first obvious one, and that is, what motivates you to apply for an appointment to the board?
Several things. One being that I believe we need diversity, and so as a female, I wanted to provide some of that diversity as along the gender lines, and also being a business owner and a homeowner, and also the fact that I grew up in the desert. I think all of those things can really add to the board as a whole. I think the board is a living organism, and each person has their role. And you don't want to see 5 of the same thing up there. You want to see differences, and so that was probably one of the main reasons. I'm very passionate about water and about our water district. And I want to serve in whatever the district thinks I can serve the best. And so if I'm not chosen, then that means that I'm meant to be on the CAC. That's the best way that I can serve. And then last of all, I know Vicki would have wanted it.
Thank you.
All right. I'll ask Director Reynolds if he'd direct some questions towards you.
Well, thank you.
Okay?
Hi, Gail.
Hi.
I have a several-part scenario question. And assuming you're on the board and an item comes across the dais that you feel very strongly about, you've really made up your mind, your heart is very strong, your opinion is right where you feel it should be, but you also know that the people that you represent, the citizens of Joshua Tree, feel differently. What would you do?
I would educate the citizens of Joshua Tree. And I'm not talking opinion, I'm talking facts. If I knew factually that this had to be done, then I would do my best to educate the people for why we have to do it. If it's just an opinion, like I think that we should do this, I'm not going to impose my opinion on the people.
Okay, the same scenario, say you feel very strongly about the same item, and coming across the board meeting, you come to realize that the rest of the board feels completely different as well. Again, what would you do?
As long as my facts were backing me, I would vote nay when everybody voted yay, and I would vote yay when everybody voted nay. I don't think the board is there for everybody to agree all the time. But the majority, putting all those heads together, you come up with the right answer. So if everyone else believes something different, that would still happen, whether I said yay or nay. And I still want my views to be, as long as it's because of facts and not just opinions, I'm going to stick with my guns.
Thank you. And the final part of this question, so say everybody voted yes, you voted no, and how would you react at the end of that vote?
I would thank everybody for listening to my opinion, and I would say the majority rules, and that's just the way it is. No harm, no foul.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I'll move on to Director Unger.
Good evening, Gail.
Good evening, Director Unger.
I'm looking at your questions and the answers, and I thought it was very interesting in about the challenges that the district could face in the next 5 to 10 years. And one of the things you said was you think that the board should devise strategies to ensure that each district is well represented, seeing as we've gone to those districts, and you were here through a lot of that process. You watched us, go over these, debate it, you weighed in. So it certainly, it sounds like you're talking about recruitment. Would that be something?
Yes.
Okay. And we know that it's going to be challenging, certainly to make sure that each district does get represented.
Right.
And also you said something very interesting, which can be very controversial. I know it's controversial in the water industry. You said, I think we also have to look at private wells eventually and at least monitor their water use. This is something that people will come out with their shotguns and chase you away from their well. That's up and down the state of California. And
Right.
but yet I know Mojave Water Agency is dealing with something like this with their small producers. So how would, if you think we have to look at private wells eventually and monitor their water use, looking at how controversial it is, how would you do that?
Well, first of all, it would have to be voted on by the whole board, and if the whole board didn't agree, then it's not going to happen, so it's a moot point. But what I'm looking at was I looked at the solar installation at the JT Airport that was talking about dropping a production-sized well and sucking our water. I'm not too worried about each individual resident. I'm thinking somebody eventually is going to figure out that we've got the best water anywhere because there's no pollutants in it, and somebody's going to try and get it. And at that point, we're going to have to address the situation. But I don't see an emergency right now. I see that as something down the road.
Thank you.
And lastly, it's Director Johnson. And I want to say thank you for the application. I was impressed with your response to the questions, and I'm looking at them. And I was taken by a comment you made in question number 2 that I believe it's important to know what the responsibilities of board members are. And your comment was that they are not responsible for running the water district. That's staff responsibility. Would you elaborate on that?
Yes, I believe from everything that I've read about the board, what the board is supposed to do, that it's to set policy, and it's not to like say whether or not we should like replace this pipe instead of this pipe, because now that we're going to districts, anything that we say, it could be, well, you're trying to make your district better over the whole district, water district, and so I'm looking ahead at possibilities of what could happen, and I think that that you will have to keep that in mind in the future, that now you're not at large, you're dealing with districts, and you're going to have to look at favoritism and those kind of things, and so we would have to be very careful about what the board would tell the district to do. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you. I will sort of go with protocol here, just ask if there's any last questions from the board before we say thank you and enjoy the rest of your vacation.
No, I also want to thank you, Gail, and I agree with the Citizens Advisory Committee that you're a very strong candidate. Obviously, we have to hear from everybody, but I was very impressed by your answers tonight.
Thank you very much.
Oh, hang on a second.
No, I'm not hanging up.
Oh,
Okay.
You're staying on the line, Gail, right?
Yes,
Okay.
I am.
All right. Director Reynolds?
Yes, Gail, I want you to know I really appreciate you and all you've done. You've been very engaged, you've participated. Your input in board meetings have been outstanding. And on more than one occasion, your input has also affected how I've made a decision here. And I want you to know I'm grateful for you, and I appreciate you putting your name on the list.
Well, thank you, and like I said, it's up to you all whether I would best serve the district on the board or on the CAC or whatever. That's up to you. I just want to do whatever I can do to my best ability. So thank you all.
Thank you, Gail, very much.
Thanks for
All right.
that JT spirit. And with that, what do I need to do?
We'll now bring forth the next candidate. for
Okay,
questions.
now I end the call here?
No, we'll keep
No,
going.
she can stay on the line for everything else. All right, our next candidate then is,
It's Wesley Bousmith. Can you get that? Oh, is it? If you could take the podium for us, that'd be great. Thank you.
we'll start off this time with Director Reynolds.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks.
I'm excited to meet you,
I'm new here.
and welcome to Joshua Tree. What got your interest to becoming a board member?
I actually saw the item in the paper about the board member who passed away, and as a journalist and homeowner here, I've always been interested in public policy and serving my community, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to just, get involved with something and meet people who were passionate about the same things that I am, and so I applied.
Oh, thank you. Mr. President, would you mind if I ask the same three-part scenario question?
If you can remember it.
Oh, I can. It might be different words, but, and actually, this was a question that was asked to me one time, a long, long time ago, and so it stuck with me. If an item comes across an agenda that you feel, when you've read it, you've done your research, you feel in your heart really strong about this item, you've made up your mind, but you also have come to realize that the people that voted you in feel completely different about that item. What would you do?
Well, I do think that you have a responsibility to the people that you're representing, to listen to them, and facts can be interpreted in different ways, as we know. So I would work with the board members, hear their views. If I felt that my position was supported by facts, even if it was contrary to what constituents might feel, I would go with my factual basis and vote my conscience, knowing that we have to agree to disagree on certain things, and if the rest of the board was contrary to what I was voting, we move forward. So, but I still think it's important to have all viewpoints represented, and understanding that facts can be fluid.
Same scenario or same thought, only you're here on the dais and you're ready to cast a vote, and you know that the other four members of the board feel opposite than you. Again, how would you feel? How would you handle that?
I wouldn't feel any obligation to make it unanimous. Like I said, people work together and agree to disagree all the time, and that's the way the world works, and that's the way we get things done. I would respectfully, hope that they would hear my views and I would hear theirs. So, and somebody else could be in the same position further on down the line, and, where I was with the majority and somebody else was with the minority, and, it's not a jury, so you're not having to come to a unanimous decision.
And finally, the vote got cast. It didn't go in your favor, and clearly you can't be very happy about that. How would you handle it?
Well, it's not personal, you just have to come back with the next meeting and do your best again and work with the panel, so.
Thank you.
Well, gee whiz, Wesley, you've served 21 years on a 15-member homeowners association board.
Yeah, there were 15 units in my building, and we, had a small board over the years. I was always on it, and I learned a lot, so.
I think a lot of stuff that Director Reynolds was asking you about, you probably encountered.
Yes, we've had to, you have to learn a lot about the law. You learn a lot about dealing with what people's expectations are and what can really be done.
You said something that drew my interest on your, it was number 4. What do you see as the challenges that the district could face in 5 or 10 years? Oops. Sorry, Bob. Sorry, Wesley.
Oh.
And you noted outsider attempts to use desert water resources. And that's something that I certainly have been very vocal about on this board. Things that I felt very strongly about. In fact, Gail mentioned it about the people with the solar development, and they wanted to sink a production well. And another group came out here, they wanted to put a big housing development up. And I was calling these people carpetbaggers and stuff like that. So, things get pretty hot up here. But, and we face stuff like that a lot out here. Outsider attempts to use our desert water resources. And you also mentioned billing modernization. What would you do? What are your ideas on that?
Well, I've recently, as a customer, had several bills in a row that were in error because the electronic digital reader didn't work, and it was explained to me from customer service that the people that go out and read the meters were actually having to get out and read them, and there were so many, and that this is such a time-consuming thing to do when they've started to rely on digital readers that, some were getting mixed up and mistaken and written down the wrong way. I just think look at software that is being developed. All the time, new things that are coming out. If your doorbell can record, everybody coming to your door and transmit that to your cell phone, surely there is a way to, get a better meter reading system that takes some of the manpower out of it and the mistakes out of it, and just try to develop that better so that you can maintain the same level of customer service, because you have great customer service here and people that really respond and, answer. You talk to a person on the phone and, keep that level of personal service while automating what you can in a way that's going to last and work.
And I know I haven't seen you at any of our public meetings, but meter replacement has been a big item on our agendas.
Has it? Yeah.
And we're moving right ahead with whole new meter replacement. And while you were here, while the other candidate, Gail, said that, we're not micromanaging what size pipe to put in. We don't handle what billing software is used or how things are billed, but we certainly take direction from our staff who has to deal with that stuff when they say, this is not working anymore, we have to do something. So all these things, we are working on that. I just wanted to take that opportunity to say that.
Well, I would like to say, I haven't been to any of the public meetings because until a month ago, lived full-time in Los Angeles and was here on the weekends. Yeah, I just moved out full-time. I've owned my house for 5 years, so, the Wednesday nights were kind of impossible, but I'm glad to be here tonight, so.
Thank you.
Wes, I just want to welcome you
Thank you.
as a new full-time resident of our community. It's really great that you've joined the community, and I hope you have a long and enjoyable and prosperous residency here. And I was very impressed with your resume, and I'm also want to applaud you for wanting to be in public service in your community. That's something that I value very highly. I felt in moving to Joshua Tree that I should really try to do things to improve and serve my community, and I think that's, it's absolutely wonderful when residents go beyond just existing here, but, if their time and lives permit, get actively engaged. So thank you for making this effort to do that. What I did wonder, and I don't know if you have any experience either through your journalism or otherwise in the water world, or a passion for it, but I would just like you to maybe speak to that a little bit. Why this?
Well, I do have a passion for natural resources and the environment, and while I don't have an agenda as far as what we should do about it, I believe that we all need to work together and do something about these things. I was a reporter, which is not on my resume because I ran out, I try to keep it to a page. I ran out. My first job in newspapers was as a reporter at my hometown paper, and I did a big series of uncovering toxic waste dumps that were all over the county where I was from in Ohio, in Warren County, Ohio, and that's where I grew up. And it got picked up by, it was a small paper in a small town, but people were really following it, and it got picked up by the bigger news carriers, and I felt, a real personal sense of satisfaction in exposing it and, getting them cleaned up. One was a Superfund site that got cleaned up, and, just this was poisoning the water table there. So these were, solvents that had been used in manufacturing. So I feel that, people need to step up. If you're going to be part of something, a water district, we are all part of it. We all pay into it, and you can sit back and complain about things, or just be passive, or you can get involved with your community and do some service and learn more and work with people and exercise your passion that way. That's why.
Thank you.
Right, welcome. The Joshua Basin District is welcoming you. We're glad that you're here. One way or the other, I certainly find opportunity for you to get engaged, and that's I think most of us here started out as volunteers back in the day, and look what happened. And here we are. I was very impressed by your submission here, especially on item 2, where you talked about that the board should make all attempts board members should make all attempts to familiarize themselves with issues facing their constituents, and to look at the budgets and the spreadsheets and the projects. And I've been on the finance committee for most of my adult life. And anybody that likes to look at figures, one of the most riveting. And by the way, you're invited to come to our committee meeting. But I thought maybe you could elaborate a little bit on that, because I'm always interested when somebody wants to know, what is it going to cost? What is this going to entail? And please elaborate.
And on the Homeowners Association, which is a much smaller thing, obviously, we had to do budgets every year by law, and, do all the line items and everything, and projections for what things might cost, coming up. And, when you really start, getting down to the nitty-gritty and looking at it, the money goes pretty fast. What you're bringing in, goes out pretty fast. So this is something that I think people don't learn personally, and people who are serving the public certainly need to learn it, that, there is a finite amount of money, and it has to be spent wisely, and it has to be spent in accordance to the rules and regulations that have been, set forth, so.
I appreciate that.
It's not that I love numbers that much, although I used to, in another incarnation of my past life, I worked for a structural steel firm in Ohio, and I had to do what we would call line item estimates for every bolt, every washer, every weld, everything that went into a job. So those lists of numbers became pretty daunting too, but again, you have to know how much you're going to spend, so.
I appreciate that, thank you. Additional comments, Director Hunt?
No, just don't be too biased now toward this candidate.
Any other additional comments?
None yet.
All right.
I think Bob wants to get you on the finance
Yeah,
committee.
we'll figure out a way to work this.
You can't leave.
And thank you for, having me to come in tonight, and I would like to, volunteer to do things, should this thing not happen. I know there are other people that are probably more qualified.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Wesley.
Turn it over to the general manager for our next applicant.
Rick, so our next applicant would be Mr. Paul Coate.
Okay, sure.
Hello.
Howdy.
Good evening. We're going to go ahead and a couple questions and to introduce yourself, Paul Coate, Frank.
My name
And
is
we'll
Paul
start off
Coate.
We'll start off with Director Unger, if she would.
Welcome. I didn't ask Gail this because I know she was here for all the meetings about the rate increases. She was very vocal about how she felt. I didn't ask Wesley this because that was way before his time and wouldn't have any background on that at all and would really be just guessing. But I think you were pretty familiar with the whole process we went through on the rate increases.
Yes.
Even if you weren't in a meeting, I'm pretty sure you watched them or caught up on them somehow. Would you have raised the rates?
I think given the present cost of doing business, I think you had to.
It's really hard to do what you want without any money.
Yeah, if you need new equipment, you want to put in new infrastructure, water lines, water tanks, pumps, redo your well like you're doing well 14, you're trying to do that four log removal for well 14, so that all costs money. So it doesn't come for free, so the money has to come from somewhere, so it has to come from our customers.
And you've been on the board before.
I've been twice elected to the board and one time appointed to the board.
On your resume, you said that as of May 1 of this year, that you are retired. Was that retired from the Saboba Indians?
That is retired totally. I retired 5.5 years ago, 6 years ago almost, from the Marine Corps base. I worked there for 32.5 years. And I was off for a very short time. I went to work for the Saboba Indians, and then I left there May 1st and totally retired.
So I guess I was curious because further down it says, as a 27-year resident, served previously on this board, regularly attend the Mojave Water Agency meetings. Currently serve as a member of the Engineering, Budget, Recharge Basin, Strategic Planning, and Hospital Package Wastewater Committees.
I think when I put that on there, that was, I think I cut and pasted that on there from the past. I have served on those committees. I'm not serving on them now. I have served on those.
Thank you. And so you were at one point, what was the engineering budget recharge? That was when we were working on the recharge basin.
Yes.
Putting the recharge basin together, okay.
We're working on bringing it in and bringing in the pipeline.
And then the hospital, we're putting together that hospital package.
Sewer treatment package plant.
Okay, and so that you.
I was involved in all those as part of the engineering committee.
And I think we forgot to mention, just want to touch just briefly, about the districting that we had to go through. I think you were here for at least one of those meetings, we're going over like the districts.
I
Did you
can't say
see
that I can't speak too favorably for districting. I'm not really fond of it. I liked it much better when the district was at large and people could randomly vote for who they want to vote throughout the district. I think it's going to make it extremely hard in the future. And you got small little segments of the district broken up, and you have to get board members from each different section to actually want to run. And in other cases, you're going to have times when you have, say, I think I'm in District 5 if I read the map correctly. I may have to run against somebody I don't want to run against. Just in order to get on the board or try to stay on the board, you may have to run against somebody you don't really want to run against. So I'm not 100% in favor of districting. I understand it was the law, and it had to be done, so the board had to do what it had to do.
And this time, of the 4 candidates, we got, none of you are in the district
District
that
three?
would have been.
District 3, which is what Mickey was in?
Director Luckman. So you were
Or
all
Luckman, I'm sorry.
actually filling that whole, the ethos of this being an at-large seat. So, I just think that's, just something we should, if it needs to be explained further at some point, we can have that just as a brief recap on that. And so I think last time we had candidates come up, I was concerned that whoever, took that would run again, and I don't feel that that's.
I guarantee you right now, if I don't get re-put on the board now, and even if I do, I still plan on running in a year and a half or 2 years.
For what would be your own district?
I will run for my own district.
Okay. That's all I have right now, Tom, thanks.
All right. Director Reynolds.
Oh, thank you. Well, we had a heck of a campaign trail on the last election. I was chasing you and you were chasing me.
I only got as
And
close as 1 vote to you. You want to beat me by 11.
we got as close as to 1 vote, and it was pins and needles election night. Frank, I'll be honest with you, had you won the election, you would have done a great job.
And so are you.
I would have supported you wholly then. Anyway, back to the 3-part question I've asked in the first 2 candidates. If, say for instance, there is an item on the agenda, and you're reading the notes, the more you read it, the more you are really steadfast, firm on the item on the agenda. So much so, you've already made a decision. You feel strongly about this item, but it's come to your attention that the people that have voted you in Joshua Tree feel the opposite. What would you do and how would you feel?
I feel, number one, I'm elected by the constituents of the district. If it's the will of the people, if they want something done a certain way, I have to maybe rethink my thoughts and also evaluate the thoughts of the other board members to make the best decision possible for the district. But in most cases, I would probably try to side with the constituents and the people that put me in office.
Okay. On the same subject, so we're in the board meeting, the subject comes across, and it comes to your realization that the other 4 board members are also feeling the opposite of how you are on this item. Again, what would you do when it comes to
I think if the other 4 board members were against what I was feeling and the constituents were against it, again, I'd have to go along with the board and along with the constituents.
Okay. And so you're not afraid to change your mind?
I'm not afraid to change my mind. If I can be shown by the board and or the constituents of this district that I'm wrong, then I have to change my mind.
That ruins my 3rd question. Assuming you have voted and you feel strongly on an item, it's come to vote, and it went the opposite way of how you feel, what would you do and how would you feel?
Well, sometimes we have to agree to disagree. So sometimes decisions are going to be made you're not going to be happy with, but you have to go along with what the district and the board votes on. You don't have to like everything that the board does or that the management does, but you do have to go along with what the majority says you have to do.
Thank you.
I know, Paul, you have an extensive background in natural resource management, as I do, and also in water with, all the different capacity you served in. But, tell us what brings you here tonight to, throw your hat in the ring again. What's motivating you to do so? What, from the standpoint of commitment, passion, service, whatever it might be.
The key thing that's always motivated me is the ability to be able to serve the people of the district and serve the community. I've done that in the past as a volunteer fireman. I became an EMT. I was also a part of search and rescue and mounted posse. I like to volunteer my time to help my community and help the local people out. And I'd like to offer up my experience working in the field of water. I've done this for 44 years, worked in the field of water. I know what it is to work on pumps, to work on wells, to redo wells, to work on reservoirs, recoat, recondition, and even build. I actually was the first manager for Bighorn. When I put Bighorn in, Bighorn was actually my baby. I installed every piece of pipe that went in the ground. I put the buildings in. I had the wells put in, put their new reservoirs in, did the first 250 meter hookups. I actually tapped the lines and put those in myself, me and the crew that were working out there. So I know the water system inside and out, and I just like to share my experience with the people.
Thank you.
District 5 is a great district.
I think you're in it too,
I
aren't
am
you?
in it.
That's what I was afraid of.
I am happy to hear that you will be seeking election come 2020. I am impressed with everything. Of course, we know each other. I've sat out there while you were on the board back in the day and watched you. And I would like you to elaborate a little bit, if you would, on part of the questionnaire here. It says, what do you understand about the responsibilities of a member of the board? And you said to govern, to set policy and to ensure that they are followed, to establish and follow our strategic plan, and to keep the district financially solvent and work with management. And I would like you to probably hone in on working with management.
As far as working with management, number one, it's the district's obligation to hire a management team that is going to run and administer the policies that are set by the district board. And in doing so, they actually have the actual operation, the day-to-day operations of the district, and all we do as board members is oversee what management is doing to the best of our ability. We're not supposed to be the ones going out there and tell them how to fix pumps, how to work on reservoirs, but we do have to maintain that the manager is doing what is in our rules and regulations and set forth by the board. Because if that isn't being adhered to, then we have to talk to management, and only the management. It's not our job to go out and talk to the employees, but only to the managers. And when management gets it wrong, then that's time the board has to step up and talk to management.
Thank you. Additional questions from the board?
None at this time.
None from me.
Hearing none, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our final candidate this evening is Tom Bowen.
Hello. Good evening. Welcome, Tom. We're going to start off with a question from each of the directors if we can, and I will start off with Director Hund, if I may.
Sure. Good evening, Tom. It's good to see you here tonight. And this feels a bit odd because we've been in a relationship for so long, including when you were sitting right up here. So, but we really appreciate. Well, yeah, different chair. But we really appreciate you coming in tonight and applying for the position again. My question's pretty simple. It's not technical. It's just speaking to, elaborating on, what brings you here to this place tonight to apply for this job, what your motivation is, your reason is, and if you could just elaborate on it a bit for us.
Yeah, I was confused by this question last time I did this, under the same circumstances, by the way. I think it's in large measure, it's a sense of community. One feels a sense of ownership and a sense of obligation. And I personally, I volunteered as a deputy sheriff in 1973 for 42 months. I got paid supposedly $1 a year, but I never saw it. A sense of obligation, and it's not just to talk about it, it's not just to platitude about it, it's to actually do something. And this place is, I was curious about it when I heard about the demonstration garden. And then I was also curious about why a water board in the middle of nowhere had to have an attorney at all of their meetings. I was curious about those two things. And so I started here, and that sort of was a seed, and then it just started growing and growing. It's recommended by the Association of Special Districts or something that you have an attorney at your meetings. It's not that we need one here in a peculiar sort of way. And Gilda is very useful here. But to actually do something substantial, rather than just say a bunch of stuff about how much we care and our thoughts are with you and all those other kinds of things, actually get up and do something. And this happened to be on the same side of the highway as I live on, and I didn't have to cross the street, so here I am. And then over time, it's just simply grown and grown, and I was getting favorable responses from people about being here and all that, so I just kept stepping up and stepping up.
Thank you.
Essentially.
Director Reynolds.
Thank you. Tom, I've asked everybody the same question. It's a three-part question, and so here goes. Say you're on the board. The agenda comes your way, and you read through it, and there's an item on this agenda that really strikes your heart. You feel very strongly about this item. So much that you pretty much already made your decision. But knowing how this item is and how you feel about that item on the agenda, it's come to your attention that the people that have voted you in of Joshua Tree feel the opposite. What would you do?
In part one, I do feel strongly about certain issues, but I most definitely want to have an open mind. You've said it yourself, where you say, come up and talk at the microphone about these issues and stuff like that. You wanted to hear opinions from people in the community before you made your decision on it. You were thanking people. This is just recently, obviously. You've only been up here for a few months. That would come up here and give an opinion, and because there's a very big value to that. I never liked it when, for example, I'd get up there to my seat on the board and there'd be a fresh piece of paper in front of me that I had not seen before. I do not like that, because I need to digest stuff and I have to think about stuff for a while, because my opinions, it's kind of like just having one person in a boat. You can rock it very easily, so I don't so much like that kind of thing. There's this, getting to that last part, remind me if I missed something, is the leadership component in the question, and that is with a lot of people in the community, because there's no one opinion, except maybe that everybody wants water for a low rate. That's when you have to step up and you have to make the hard decisions. When I was here the first time, Rebecca said something about, why don't you stay in the CAC committee, because it's easier, you don't have to put yourself on the line, make the hard decisions, that type of thing. But you get back to what I first said about why I wanted to do it, and you have to get up and step up and do the hard things. It's not always easy, but somebody has to do it. You can't just talk about it, you got to get up there. Here I am.
Part two of the question. So here we are in the board meeting. The item has come up. We've talked about it. You're reasonably sure that the other four board members feel opposite of you, as well as the people in the community. Now what are you going to do?
I would vote the way I think I should vote. I'm not up there as the term would be rubber stamp, either a rubber stamp for the rest of the board or a rubber stamp for staff, that kind of thing. And I'm not up there for that. I don't need anything here other than, I feel the need to do something in my community. I can be myself, I can vote the way I want to, I can vote by what I read and understand and what's in my heart, which is clean, safe water for everybody at a reasonable price. But I would do whatever the paperwork, whatever the research is, wherever that guides me. There is always an underlying sensitivity to people here that roughly 1/3 of the community is under the poverty level. I always have that in mind, always. But it comes down to the point that do we want to have safe water, reliable water in our pipes or not? So we have to pay for things, and in order to, and that's one of the hard ones, right at that type of thing.
Part 3, you've stated everything to the board in deliberations. You've done your very best to convince them how you feel about this item, and the vote comes to pass as a 4-1 vote. What are you going to do?
You mean if
So the
I
votes-
state my opinions,
Right.
and then I'm not listened to,
And they all vote against, it's a 4-1 vote. You vote yes or no, they vote the opposite.
democracy. Democracy. I did not, for example, when I lost the election, take all my toys, pack them up, and go home. I didn't miss a beat. I was here for everything that I knew about, or if I wasn't on vacation, everything that happens here that I can go to, I go to it. I was always here, and I'll be here after this is over with, whether I'm sitting in that chair, unless I get rearranged. If I'm sitting in that chair or not, you're not going to get rid of me unless Kathleen says she doesn't want me at the farmer's market anymore. Yeah, I'll stay away. Did I answer that?
Yes, you did, thank you.
Lost track.
Director Unger.
Hey there, Tom. And I agree, Tom, we're sorry that people are here again for another sad reason. And thank you again for stepping up. I have had the benefit of serving on the board with you. And I found you, even though your application materials were very skimpy,
I got a list here if you'd like me to read some of it.
I found you the most prepared person for any meeting that I've ever encountered anywhere, anything. And to know that you don't like that last minute piece of paper, that's very upsetting. I guess I have a greater understanding of why you would feel that way.
Yeah, that's only happened a time or two, and it was benign, but.
And sometimes it's 4-1. And like one of our other candidates said tonight, it's not personal. Can't help it, sometimes it's just 4-1. And, again, you were here for the districting process. You came to every meeting, you know what that's all about. This is the last truly at-large seat that we'll be filling. None of the other candidates here tonight are in that district that Director Luckman would have represented. So basically, you'll all kind of be on your own again, 2020 or 2022. I know I asked you this the last time you came before us. No matter what happens tonight, you gonna run again for Joshua Basin?
Probably not. I really enjoy the personal relationships that I have with the directors. And then I find that some of the directors are supportive of me and what I'm doing, my efforts and my energy and all that kind of stuff. And for me to now say, well, I'm going to run against Gary, that seems like almost like a treachery to me, that I would run against somebody that I've been so collegial with and that has been supportive of me. It just seems like some sort of a Shakespearean backstab of some kind.
Gary is so doggone busy at the Mojave Desert Land Trust. He says, Tom,
And then part two, how old would I be towards the end of a term, hypothetically, if I won? And I'm not that good of a campaigner. You know, I would be somewhere in my later 70s, and I don't know if I'll have, and this varies between people. I'm not trying to insult anybody that might be on the elderly side, but I got to use this tool up here, and I don't know if I'll have it or not. By the way, I did question that the last time we did this, a couple of years ago, if I would have the smarts to be up here right now. And we can all judge that together. I think I do. And I think actually I've grown as a person since I started doing this. This has pushed me out into the community more, as far away as Apple Valley, for the Mojave Water Agency meetings, Aqua. I went to that one time.
You've learned so much, Tom. I mean, you
I'm
come to
learning
all
all the
the,
time.
all the meetings, and like you just said, all these different things that you've gone to. You've
Actually,
learned a lot about water.
Tonight, I'll confess that I found tonight's agenda to be a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
All right.
That contract thing with the attorneys, I actually enjoyed that, reading that. There's a lot to learn in there.
You're a natural for this.
You decide.
I have nothing more.
Greetings. Seems to me that I think the last time we encountered, I asked you, would you run again? And I really hope that you do run again. And if that opportunity affords itself, and it's not to say anything, I like the sense of competition, and I just want to ditto, I think you would make an excellent candidate. You've been a great board member. It's been a pleasure to serve with you. I would like you to elaborate, if you would, a little bit. You answered on your question number 2 about what do you understand to be the responsibilities of a member of the Joshua Basin Board of Directors, and your response was, the Board of Directors collectively makes policy decisions. There are many other responsibilities, such as participating in board meetings, committee meetings, reviewing financial reports, which we know that you're an expert on because I schooled you up on that, and reviewing occasional contracts. Last year's loan documents come to mind. General manager and his staff administer operations of the district. Please embellish on that.
Couple things. Yeah, it's clear in all the paperwork that individual directors do not supervise staff, any of them. I didn't supervise Kathleen when we were working at the farmer's market when I was a director. Pardon me? She's off camera. Kathleen Redditch, who runs the farmer's market, is sitting right here and laughs at me a lot. Could you let me have that last part again?
Sure. The general manager and the staff administer operations of the district.
Right. The board establishes policy, obviously, and then hands that off. Actually, it's more complete than that. Usually, it's the staff that develops things that they need in order to run the district, and they'll formulate this stuff into policies or discussions and such things, and then they'll bring that to the board, and then the board gives them direction as to what they think is best for the district and gives that to the staff. I always thought it was, because I have always approached this modestly, this being a director thing. I always considered myself the junior person on the board, and I'll be the junior person again. You won't be anymore, Mike. I always came in low on everything, and I never even attempted to direct anybody as what to do. It caught my eye. I was looking at this resolution 19-1006 that's on the agenda for tonight that's going to be voted on. And it struck me that it says on here, actions taken by the board is one of the phrases, minutes of the board directed by the board on behalf of the district, assigned by the board, acting as the board secretary. open session meetings of the Board of Directors, recording, that'd be the recording of it part, board meetings, board records other, it's all about the board, is what I'm getting at. And I saw it right here. This is one of the things I can do, is I can see things in different papers and put them together and formulate questions and, rationales for why staff wants to do certain things. And then I bring that kind of stuff forward. But simply, policy comes from here. The general manager and his staff run the place. Otherwise, it's chaos. If you have 5 people up there, everyone thinking they could direct the district as an individual, it would be chaos. And so this is the way it should be. And then also, too, when you have your expert people over here that are stabilizing force in the district, they're here all the time. Sue's been here for 33 years or so. And you can, that allows you to have people, regular people on the board. Just regular people. I'm a regular person. I didn't have any history in water in any way. I was a policeman, for crying out loud. That was nothing to do with water, except to give it to inmates, I suppose. I did that for 5 years or so. Well, enough said. I vented on you for that one.
All right. We'll turn it back to the GM, I think. Is that where I go?
Yeah, we plan to open it back up for public comment
All right.
already.
At this point then, thank you, Tom. We'll take public comment. Yes, ma'am.
Go here.
Please.
Hi, I'm Jean Jarlsberg. I live in Joshua Tree on the south side of the highway. I don't know what district I'm in, though. I wondered how the announcement was made for these applicants. I missed it. I might have applied. I'm a community activist, have been for most of my life. But I just wanted to say how impressed I am with the candidates. I don't know, you got a tough job up there. I know kind of who I'm leaning towards, and I'm kind of hoping, but I just think it's great, the quality of people that you are attracting. And I also am very concerned about our water. I think water is the new oil. It's obviously very valuable to all of us, and it's going to get more and more expensive because there'll be less and less of it. And the desert obviously is very dependent on our water. So I just wanted to say that I'm impressed, but I'm thinking about running also.
Yes, sir.
El Marquez, Central Community. I also wanted to thank for the community about the 4 people that applied for this position on the board. Even though we had a loss of a good person that was on the board. Of course, a lot of times I didn't agree with her decisions on things, but that's part of being part of the community. I know 3 of the people that applied for the position on the board, and I got a lot of respect for all 3 of them. The 4th person I don't know, so I can't really talk about them, but that's here and there. But what I was interested in is that there was no questions about if these people that would sit on the board, if they would represent the ratepayers, owners of this district. And that's who they should be representing, not special interests or not just to go along to get along, which has been in the past for the 18 years that I've been here. And I've seen a lot of cronyism and in some cases nepotism in this district. But I would hope that when this board makes a decision of who's going to sit on the board, that they don't appoint somebody that's just going to go along to get along. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? At this time, I guess I'm at director's comments, so we'll start with Director Reynolds.
Okay. I'd like to thank all four candidates for putting your name. This is not an easy job. I'm the junior director, sort of.
This time.
With 9 years on the board total. I've seen a lot. I've seen this happen far too many times. This very predicament we're in that needs to be dealt with. Each one of the candidates has a strong point. Wesley, I'll start with you. I appreciate your desire to get involved in the community. Welcome to Joshua Tree. Continue. Gail, you've always impressed me. I really enjoy you, and I think you'd make a wonderful board member. I think you represent Joshua Tree in its fullest. And Tom, you also have impressed me over the years. You beat me out last time we were in this predicament, and you've done a fine job. So you have the experience to do this. I've enjoyed watching how you like to prepare for a board meeting. I think you would do a fine job. Frank, you have an enormous amount of water experience. You have an enormous amount of experience as a board member. You're not afraid to say who or what you think, and you've also had the most votes of the people at Joshua Tree that came close. So you're the next, in my opinion, you're the next in line. I've worked with you, Frank, on this board before, and so I know who you are, I know what you do, and as much as I would like to ask or nominate all four people, Frank would be my nomination.
Director Unger.
Since I brought up the thing about the districting and someone here, I'd like to, could we talk about how this process came about, that we went through the noticing in the paper, all that kind of stuff? And also, where's the district map? Is it one of those, the big map here?
And you have one on your
I got a
agenda
small
pack.
one. Doesn't really have much in the way of streets.
You need a big magnifying glass.
Is that the map? Jay, do you want to come up and have a look and see where you are on this map? And
Yes.
Beverly or Mark or Sarah or someone explain how the process was designed?
You're in three. Should be in three.
You're in three.
Oh?
Boy, I wish you had got your name on that list. So yes, we do get involved.
Park? Where's Park? Middle of town.
We've got you in area.
Where's Aberdeen? Aberdeen.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah, one, yeah.
Wes is in one.
Okay. So what we lost a longtime director, Mickey Luckman, and we had, was it like 60 days or something to actually go through this process. We had to very quickly, we had at our next board meeting decide we could either hold an election, we could make an appointment. If we dithered around and couldn't get our act together, the county could actually appoint somebody. So we decided to go for the appointment process, and these went in, the notices went in when?
Right away.
It was like June.
As of June 19th.
Yeah,
Like in the paper.
They were posted all over the place, too.
Yeah.
They were at the community center, the Ink and Steel, they were at a couple of places. Kathleen
I
put the,
personally posted publicly.
Yeah, I was out of town.
Oh, yeah,
We
yeah.
physically posted.
Bedtime.
Yeah.
So and now we have tonight we do have to make a choice. And yeah, Mike, it's a tough choice. 4 good
There
candidates.
should be 4 winners.
4 people I'd like to serve with on the board. And then we have until August 7th, I think, right, to get this into the county register of voters. And who else?
That's it.
This is kind of, so we've got this is it, we need to make the decision and get all our paperwork in. So that's kind of how the process went. And all the districting, we did that all the first 6 months of this year.
I knew that.
So, yeah. And you never know, we may, populations can change in Joshua Tree, we may redraw these. Enough people could say, we've had it with this is ridiculous, let's go back to an at-large, you never know. But this is what we got right now. And I thank everyone for applying for this. 4 good candidates.
Director Hunt?
I'm going to give an abbreviated version because I very much agree with both of the other directors' comments about the qualifications of the different applicants. I feel like we're very lucky to have 4 what I would consider very qualified applicants for this job here tonight. We're lucky in a sense, but it's also tough because it's really a dilemma when we're in this situation, and I personally have a lot of angst about it because there are people I really like and care about that are very well qualified. That to me it's a very, very tough decision. I do feel though that there's a couple things that stand out to me that kind of winnow folks out, and what that comes down to me is because they're all very well qualified for different reasons, is their level of participation. And both Tom and Gil have been consistent, dedicated participants as volunteers in this district. And it's been they're both very, very impressive people that I really am very fond of. And I think either one of them would be an excellent choice. So for me, it comes down to the 2 of them. And in my case, this is with literally tearing at my heartstrings. I'm going to say that this particular time, I'm going to suggest that we place Gil's name in nomination for the job. And I literally was flipping a coin here between the 2 of them because it just was killing me. But I think because the argument that Gil made about diversity, and I really like having the diversity on the board. I would like to see ethnic diversity in the future, but I really like having a mix of male and female board members, so that was kind of like finally the thing that tilted it for me, because I value them equally as individuals, and I think they both bring a whole lot to our district.
Thank you. It's been my honor to serve as president. This is a very difficult time. We went through this twice now since I've been here, and the parting and passing of our previous board members is always, as someone alluded to, the relationships that you build here are beyond the dais, and whether they're smiley or sad or happy, it goes on, and we collectively come together. I want to say thank you to each and one of the candidates. One of the things that I find is the common thread. We all have it. We all started there. It's about community service. However we look at the community, we're here because we feel that we can make some contribution, and it's not about the money. It's not about anything else. It's about where we live, and we're trying to protect and preserve our resources and the community. And I just want to thank each and every one of you that volunteered for this. And with that, General Manager, what is my next move?
I would then ask a director to make a motion for an appointment, which should then
All
be
right,
seconded.
At that time, I would call for a motion to appoint. Anyone have a motion?
I have already,
Yeah,
Gary Hunt already made
I did make a motion.
It was
As
out-
did I.
It was out of order.
Oh.
I am calling
Oh, okay.
for a motion to appoint
Okay.
now.
That's a
Yes,
correct
sir.
callback, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, my
Well-
apologies, Mr. President, I didn't mean to
Correct.
act out of
That's
order.
fine.
So, well, I would still like to make that motion to place Gail Austin's name in nomination.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second. All those, I guess, discussion?
Yeah, it'd probably be a good idea to have a discussion. This is a pretty important
Okay.
decision, and we may or may not have more than one vote, so.
Another comment? No?
It's up to you, but it's out of order.
The motion has been made. A discussion for the board?
Mr. President, I've made a motion prior to you asking for a motion.
It was passed, Michael.
Okay.
It was out of order. So we have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded for Gail Austin. Discussion amongst the board.
I think I shouldn't start since I placed her name in nominations.
Second.
Oh, I must say that Gary, Director Hunt made a compelling argument, and I actually feel the same way. Two people who have been coming to all the meetings, taking part in all the things we do, come to the riveting finance committee meetings and take part in all of our activities. That really swayed me as well, and if you've made a move for Gail, I will also agree with Gail.
All right. Director Hunt?
I don't have that much to add. I think I said it, but I'll repeat it, and that is that to me, given that all four of the candidates were qualified in different ways, I think I look forward to Wes hopefully coming and becoming a volunteer, and you might want to consider applying for our Citizens Advisory Committee, and would love to have you start participating in the district. I think you understood that tonight, that, there are folks that are fellow applicants that are qualified that have really been putting in a lot of time and effort and dedication to the district. And I literally was not sure which way I was going to go, because I so admire Tom and think he was one of the best board members I've ever worked with. But I also have equal feelings about Gail, and both of them have been so dedicated to this district and so professional in their demeanor and their comments, and have contributed a lot to the board and to the board's decisions. So for that reason, that's why I placed her name in nomination, and the diversity, of course.
Okay. And with that being said, then I'll call for a vote.
Can I have a comment?
Sure. I'm sorry.
Well, thank you. I agree with Director Hahn. Gail has demonstrated a tremendous amount of engagement and involvement. I think she would make an excellent director. And yeah, I'd love to work with her, but I truly believe that Frank is more qualified and has much more experience, and has had a huge support of the voters of Joshua Tree. And so that's my comment. And Gail, I really, this is a tough one. Boy, I'd love to sit next to you.
All right, any other discussion? If not, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Do we want to do roll call?
I really suggest a roll call vote.
Roll call vote?
For the record.
President Johnson?
Yes.
Vice President Unger?
I mean, excuse me, I'm answering yes?
Oh, I'm sorry. Calling for the roll call vote.
No.
We'll go back. Okay. Vice President Unger?
Yes.
Director Hund?
Yes.
Director Reynolds?
Nay.
Gail, we love you, and that's where that
Yes,
would
we
be.
do.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for appointment for the vacancy.
I would like to make that motion. For the reasons I've already stated, I'd like to nominate Paul Coate. I've known Frank as Frank, so you'll always be Frank. And so that's my nomination.
I'll second that. Discussion?
No, I think I've said what I had to say about why I made the choice that I made.
Discussion, Director Reynolds?
Well, I've stated how I feel as well. And again, Joshua Tree has demonstrated who they want. And working with Frank in the past is, I know what we're getting and who we're getting. With the vast years and years and years of knowledge of Joshua Tree and water, and management and finances, everything from, and even sewer upcoming projects, Frank is by far the most qualified candidate.
Director Unger?
I do have reservations about Frank Coate, and that is that he's been elected a few times, twice, and 2 of those times, Frank, one, you said you got transferred, and so you went off with your job. The second time, you were voted in, and you left the board to pursue what you thought was a better job offer.
Job offer was to apply for the general manager's position for Joshua Basin.
Right, but twice
That's why you hired Kurt Sauer.
Twice, I think people have thrown away their vote on Paul Coate, so I can't support Paul's nomination.
Okay. And with that, I will call for a roll call vote. Director Reynolds?
Aye.
Director Unger?
No.
Director Hunt?
No.
And I'm an aye. So that's a no-go.
It fails.
So we have a problem.
Go ahead.
We have a problem.
We've got 2 more candidates here. I would nominate Tom Flow.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right. I'll have roll call vote or discussion. I think we've had a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
Director Reynolds?
Tom would make an excellent director. If Frank wasn't sitting in that chair, boy, I'd still have trouble. But it is what it is. Stay involved, and I still stand on my support.
Director Unger?
Are you a yes or no?
That would
Well,
be
there's
no.
not a vote yet.
And
right?
there hasn't
We're
been a
discussing.
second.
Oh, we're discussing here?
There was a second.
But we,
Oh, there was a second. You're right.
Yeah, Gary second.
Now it's for
You're
discussion.
in the process of taking a vote, that sounds
Okay.
like.
Discussion.
Yeah.
Discussion? Director Unger?
I would be very happy to serve with Tom.
so would I, as I stated before, and it was a very difficult decision for me, virtually a coin toss, and I actually did do that for a while, but then I thought, no, I've got to choose one of them. I think that we're in a situation where, to me, decorum-wise, all the board members considering one another and their sentiments, that we have an opportunity to choose a candidate that is a choice that hopefully we could all endorse, and so and get out of a deadlock. So I would hope that each of the board members, before taking their vote, would consider that we were split on the other 2 candidates, and that we have a viable candidate that has demonstrated not only as a volunteer their dedication, but also as a board member. I remember Mickey Luckman said that and I knew she really liked me, so a brief moment my humanity came in when she said that Tom was the best board member that she ever served with. Inside my inner self, I was a little, gosh, Mickey, I thought you liked me, but you know what? I had to admit she was right. And Tom was an exceptional member of our board, and so we have an opportunity to bring him back as a very strong fellow board member, and I hope that the board will see that. And there are many times in the sort of the decorum and the democracy in a parliamentary kind of situation where you make a decision when the board is split that is a compromise decision, and I don't view Tom as a compromise, but it would be a compromise decision. So I hope you all will consider that.
Okay. Then I guess we can call for a vote. Is that correct?
Can I have one more thing to say?
Sure.
The one factor that curs me from Tom, unfortunately, is he had said, no, probably not. I don't intend on running for re-election. This is a temporary seat. And that was the one thing that drove me, gosh, I really like Tom and I like to work with him, but I looked forward to a long-term relationship. For all four of the candidates, it would be a temporary, but who would plan on running for up for that election could possibly even be running against on our seats, but it shows that they have intention of not being a temporary member, someone more permanent is someone who I would like to. I certainly wish there was somebody in District 3.
Additional comments?
I was debating whether or not to, but I think I will say that even though I think that is a consideration, I think we're here tonight to appoint someone to fill a vacancy until that term is up. And it's not about whether or not they choose to run or not, and Tom could change his mind. So I think it's about appointing someone to the board that we know is well qualified, that is dedicated, that has integrity, and that all the board members could live with. And I think we could all more than live with Tom on the board, and I think we're split between the other two candidates.
I move that we call for a vote.
Okay. That being said,
I'll second that.
Okay. All right, yes, I guess I do need a second. Director Reynolds?
Nay.
Director Unger?
Aye.
Director Hunt?
Aye.
And I'm a no. So with that, how do I proceed?
I move we nominate Wesley Bossmith.
I'll second that.
Well, I have somebody on the finance committee.
If Gary doesn't snatch him up and allow
That's
me
true.
to land first.
I was already thinking about it.
Discussion. Director Reynolds.
Though I appreciate Wesley putting his name in his hat, I don't think he has the qualifications or the experience to fill the seat just yet. I do encourage you to be engaged and get involved and keep the train moving forward.
Director Unger.
He put his hat in the ring, so he's a viable candidate in my mind.
I do want to open with a comment before talking about the candidate and saying that if we don't make a decision here tonight with a majority, this could potentially go a route that we don't want it to go with a county appointment or an election. So I hope that each of the board members, including myself, really keeps that in mind and doesn't become intractable. And I think that we really ought to try to find a candidate that we can all agree with. And I think I think Rebecca and I were trying to offer an olive branch in that regard to pick someone that we knew had successfully performed on the board, and that hopefully we could all agree to. That didn't happen, although I think if this vote fails, I'm going to start placing other people's names back in nomination, and hoping that the board has had a change of heart when they consider the alternative of not selecting someone here tonight.
This is kind of like the questions you ask the candidate, you know? Very much that kind of thing. We're seeing it play out here definitely tonight.
Right. So, as far as Wes goes, we had a general manager, our last general manager, who was considered exemplary by all of us, and that's because he had the experience and the aptitude and the outlook that made him a good candidate. And he was a manager previously, a successful manager, so he knew how to manage, and those kinds of skills are transferable. And he proved that. I guess he made a joke when they were interviewing when they said, "Well, you don't know anything about water. Why are you here tonight?" And he says something like, "Well, I actually know about water. I turn on my tap every day." So, he was a very funny guy. Is a very funny guy, and we miss him terribly for his sense of humor as well. But we're really glad to have Mark. It's like, for me, a dream come true that we were able to recruit an excellent person to follow in his footsteps. So, but it's still funny not having Kurt around here tonight. Like, I wish he were here in the audience or something. And I'm sure he would be getting an inner kick out of this in a way, even though he would be, his serious self would be hoping that we could come to some agreement here tonight, but a part of him would be enjoying the action as well, knowing Kurt the way I do. So anyway, Wes, clearly his answers were very crisp, they were cogent, they were good answers, both his written answers and on the podium, and I think he shows that he does have the aptitude and the desire to serve. I would feel privileged to serve with him, and so yes, doesn't have the water experience, but has a lot of excellent experience in honors and education. So I would support his candidacy.
All right. I am, now ready for a vote?
Directors, everyone.
Comments? For Dirk? You there? Call for roll call. Director Reynolds?
Nay.
Director Unger?
Aye.
Director Hunt?
Aye.
And I'll be a no.
I would like to place Gail Austin's name in nomination for the Board of Directors.
A second.
All right. Any further discussion?
I want to reiterate that we're going to find ourselves in a real pickle here tonight if we don't select someone. And I heard statements from every single board member that they felt that both Tom and Gail were qualified candidates, even though a couple board members chose not to vote for them or place their name in nomination because they had a preferred candidate. But I think we're all in agreement that both Gail and Tom are qualified candidates. So we have a chance as board members to pick one of them tonight and in the interest of the district, bring someone into this seat that is a qualified candidate that we all agree is for all the reasons that we're considering tonight to be someone that could sit in this chair. I don't think we're going to get there otherwise unless we choose one of those two folks. So I would hope that we do, and I would hope folks would think about the consequences of not choosing one of those two. I'm willing to accept either one of them, and I'm not limiting myself to one candidate. And I think right now, respectfully to my other two board members that voted nay, I think that you're both only willing to vote for one candidate, and yet we have 4 qualified candidates here tonight. So I would hope you would consider compromising with Director Unger and I and voting for one of the 2 candidates that we all agree are qualified, and not stick to just wanting to get the person in that you prefer. Because I had a preferred candidate, and I was willing to select an alternate candidate because I knew that we all agreed that they were qualified.
So your motion is for?
Well, it's for Gail Austin, but I could amend my motion to Tom if I felt I had the support of the rest of the board. So I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Mr. President, if I may, what is the motion? I didn't understand it.
I didn't either.
Do you want to restate the motion, Gary? It's Gail, is the way I heard you.
Yeah, my
Okay.
motion, okay, well, let's do that, and then I'll go back to Tom if that fails. So,
What was the motion?
to nominate Gail Austin to be appointed to the Board of Directors.
Mr. President, if I may, I know I'm out of order, but this is
You
a
are.
special request to make a public comment on the voting that was just kind of happened here with the four people that applied for the position. If I may, I'd like to make a comment on that.
It's not in
It's
order.
up to the president to make a decision, yes or no, to allow me to make a comment.
I think we'll continue on with the process. Do I have a second for the motion?
I second.
All right, I'll take a roll call vote. Director Reynolds?
Nay.
Director Unger?
Aye.
Director Hunt?
Aye.
And I'm a nay.
I move that we nominate Tom Flowen.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All right. Discussion?
You already made the decision. I don't know why they're going over it again.
I don't either.
Well, again, and I'll direct this to you both, President Johnson and Director Reynolds. I think you can agree that we all made statements that Gail and Tom were qualified applicants. And we've worked with Tom. He did an excellent job. He's dedicated to the district. And he would be a compromise between the four of us. And frankly, Bob, President Johnson, I'd be looking to your leadership in this situation to break us out of this tie and to support his nomination for the good of the district. And if we don't do that, I think that we'd be looking at either the county making the decision or a special election.
All right. Other comments?
Well, I think we're going round and round and round and round with no forward motion. And so at this point, I'd say let's go right to a vote and then let's talk it over with the general manager and the attorney and get some suggestions on what to do next.
How about we get some suggestions right now about what the consequences might be if we don't select a board member tonight? I think
Would you like me to comment on what the options are at this point in time?
Yeah.
Well, if you go through another vote, which is in the process, and it turns out to be 2-2, like stalemate, you could adjourn this meeting to a date certain and resume your deliberations on this issue.
Mm-hmm.
And the clock is ticking. You've got to, I calculated the days. It looks like when dear Mickey passed away, the vacancy occurred the next day, June 10th. So you'd have till August 9th. I think it's a Friday. Clock is ticking, but you have time to reflect, to individually, collectively, consider what's occurring here tonight. Don't breach the Brown Act by engaging in out of this boardroom discussions with more than one other board member. But that is an option. You could adjourn tonight's meeting to a date certain. Beverly could post the notice of the adjournment within 24 hours, and you could resume your deliberations. The other option is to schedule a meeting and reconsider another meeting, and have on the agenda the decision of whether you're going to make an appointment or call for a special election. And you should covet this authority you have, because during the 60 days, you have exclusive authority to register our voters, the Board of Supervisors. Their will doesn't play into this. They don't have that authority. You do. But on August 8th, that will expire. It's not appropriate for me to give my opinion what you should do, but that is the option.
No, but I mean, just the facts is what I was looking for.
Yeah, you could continue your deliberations now and hammer out. Maybe you'll get a swing vote. I rather doubt it. But also, I rather doubt you might not get a swing vote when you adjourn. But the fact is, you'll have personal time to reflect on it, and that can be very productive. You've all made really astute observations, legally, personally, professionally. And sometimes just mediate, just thinking about what's occurred here tonight will get somebody to move in a direction that is for the good of the body, good of the order. But that's your option, is just to adjourn tonight's meeting or call for another special meeting, but the clock is ticking. And according to my calculations, that'd be Friday.
Or
August
decide we
8th.
want to have an election.
Yes, you could. You still have that authority. Nobody else can tell you what to do. That's what I meant by calling another special meeting where you reintroduce on the agenda, what are we going to do? We tried to make an appointment, it failed. Do we want to try again? Or do we want to just
Same
call for no?
candidates.
Yeah, no. You could.
The special election.
You could adjourn this meeting where everything just continues for tonight's meeting.
But we couldn't open up the candidate process again.
Sure you could.
Yeah, we can do
You have that, until August 8th, you have that option.
Yeah.
Nobody has that authority but you, this board, this governing board. So yes, you could open up the candidacy again. That could be, I think that could be, I can't give you my personal opinion.
Yeah,
I don't know how productive that would be.
Yeah, I do want to say, Director Unger, that, considering that we have four qualified candidates here tonight, that if we're going to select one, I think we should select from the group rather than open it back up again.
Just
And-
looking at what
and-
this is.
You asked a great question, and that is an option, but maybe not a viable option.
Yeah.
And then, if we can't, like I said, if we dither around and we can't do it, then this goes to the county.
Unless you call for a special election, which
And
you
if we
still
call
retain
for-
that authority.
And if we call for a special election, then it's going to cost our ratepayers quite a bit of money, and it's going to cause a delay.
And it's for a short term,
Not
yeah, and it's
free.
for a short-term appointment, potentially.
Right. So I don't want to do that to our ratepayers,
You know,
and especially when we have four qualified candidates, and we have what, in my view, a good compromise candidate.
So what started off, your question to me was, what can we do tonight? We could adjourn tonight's meeting and continue our deliberations, have some personal time to reflect on what's occurred tonight. Or you can just call another independent special meeting, or just let it die on the vines, and the authority floats up to county.
Which they will call for the election.
I don't know. The Board of Supervisors, they sometimes make appointments, and they sometimes, I think it's probably more rare than they would call for an election, but they do. They're going to have same deliberations you're having right now, because they'll have exclusive authority. You will have forsaken that authority, which it's a tough pill to swallow to your constituents.
I wouldn't want to do that to the ratepayers either, to forsake our authority and cede it to the county.
It's a good, how can you argue with that point of view?
I think we have a job to do here tonight, and I'd say do it tonight, to make a decision. And I think, again, I'm going to ask that we consider making a decision that it benefits the entire district and it doesn't serve any one of our individual agendas, and we have a candidate that we all have agreed is qualified, that has served on the board before and performed in an exemplary way and has been a dedicated volunteer, a member of our community. And, I can't emphasize enough, what a stellar individual they are. And they're a compromise because we're obviously split between the first two. So I think we have a motion on the floor for a vote for that.
Let's finish the vote.
And this is on Tom?
Yeah. So, can we flip it around, President Johnson, this time and start to vote at this end?
Sure.
Just to see if that does anything.
Yeah.
So you ready for?
I move we call for a roll call vote.
Okay. And I think we have the motion on the floor for the candidate, right? So, all right. So
Was the motion made? Yeah, okay.
We need a second.
yeah. So
You do need a second, Gary.
okay, I second.
Who made the
Gary
motion?
made the motion.
I think I did.
Okay.
Oh, did I make the motion? No, then you have to second. Sorry, it's been so long since we started.
We lost track.
Second.
Okay. So, Mr. President, would you like to call a vote?
Sure, we'll
I don't know
start
about
with the
like,
roll
but
call
you
vote.
will.
There we go. Yes, please.
I vote in favor of the nomination of Tom Flowen to the board, or seating of Tom Flowen on the board.
All right, Director Reynolds?
Nay.
Director Unger?
Aye.
and I will be a nay. I am conflicted in this, and I would personally like the board to maybe have an opportunity to discuss and elaborate. I think we have some very strong candidates. I was personally hoping that we would have somebody from District 3, and that was my whole heart's set on this process anyway, which did not happen, and hopefully we will see that. This districting process, as you see, has created quite a mess for our little community. And we spent $60,000 on something which has worked to our disadvantage. 80,000 to our disadvantage, and I am extremely frustrated with this. Of the candidates, I know Tom. Tom, I respect you highly. You would be an excellent board member again, there's no doubt. I am mindful that the elections just passed, and we have a candidate here who is a prior board member twice, who was, numerically represented by the district, which is my district, and if anybody has anything to lose in this, it's probably me. Which, that's being said, is I welcome that. But I am conflicted personally, and I see this sort of just going in a circular motion. And I would ask if it's possible that we could have maybe an opportunity to have the board members, I don't know, Gil, what we have to do, but I think we need to hash this out.
Any deliberations that occur with this board have to be in this room. You can talk to one other board member, but that'd be it. And I don't know what that would accomplish. Maybe you just have to adjourn tonight's meeting and let everybody personally reflect.
And then
I don't know if that's going to produce anything. Maybe we just have to bite the bullet, and then you're not going to agree.
Mr. President, may I have the seat? Yes. The chair. I don't think we're going to get anywhere tonight. Will future deliberations come to pass? Maybe, maybe not. In my opinion, there's clearly one person who's the highest qualified, and I'm pretty steadfast in that. Additionally, what is it possible to accept a fifth nomination? Is it possible to accept? We have somebody here who has stepped in.
You'd have to start the whole process all over again, Director Reynolds. Republish the vacancy, inform the public that occurred here tonight, and open up the candidacy.
And the time frame for that would be?
And provide the time frame.
We've talked about this once before, but again?
We'd have to squeeze it in within 15 days,
15 days, it gets us in to before the deadline then.
Beverly, how long did you post the notice of vacancy? How many
I
days?
posted it 3 days after June 19th.
And how long did it?
It's still a.
But how many days did we provide for the?
12.
Was it 12?
It was 12.
Who decides the second posting, and what the
law?
time frame?
The law decides the time frame, and I don't know if it was 10 days or 15 days that I told you.
You told me 15 days.
You'd have to post the renotice, the reopening of the candidacy for another 15 days. What does that take us to?
That takes all the way to the 6th.
That takes us all the way to the day, 2 days before it expires. You'd have to take action on the 6th.
Gail is asking if her business qualifies as in the district. Her business is.
No.
Okay.
Did you hear that question? Repeat it to the public.
Gail is asking if her business qualifies as in District 3.
I think you have to live in.
No, the answer is no.
It's your residence.
That's an awful short time frame, but it is doable. You could, the answer to your question, that you posed to me, is yes, you could re-advertise it and open it up to these candidates as well as others that may want to
So
participate.
would they have to reapply again?
Sure,
So,
but they've already got the paperwork.
President Johnson, can I speak? Please. I'm very much opposed to opening this process back up. And also, I don't want to personalize this, but I absolutely don't understand, Director Reynolds, why, when you just stated that Tom Flown is a qualified candidate, why you would want to open it up again, because if he's qualified and you use similar verbiage to describe him and his qualities and qualifications, why would we not want to seat him on the board if we're deadlocked on the other two candidates?
For the same reasons, I question you. We have somebody who is qualified. We have somebody who has a high support of the community and votes, and I don't see any option coming from you to even consider that compromise.
That wouldn't be a compromise because we were deadlocked on the first two candidates, and I offered a compromise candidate. That would be...
Well, I'm offering a compromise in return. Are you willing to accept that or receive and consider that compromise?
Well, Director Reynolds, it's not a compromise when you put a candidate forward and the board is split. Another board member puts a candidate forward and the board is split, and then we go for a third candidate who would be a compromise, who we've all said is qualified and well qualified to be on the board. So what I was trying to do is offer a compromise. Tom was not my first choice. Mr. Coates is your first choice. Okay, so Gail was my first choice. I was willing to cede that for the good of the order and to accept my second choice. And that's what I was hoping that you and President Johnson would be willing to do, to not be intractable, but to accept a second choice. And I think that's a very reasonable olive branch to offer.
I feel the same way, only on another seat. And I don't see, we're at a moot. We're at an impasse, and pursuing an argument's not going to do anything, but I think it's going to build the wall stronger.
Well, you may be right, but again, I just want to point out that what you're offering is not a compromise here tonight.
I've heard your position over and over and over and over and over again.
Let me finish, please, out of decorum. It's not a compromise. It's take my nomination, or we don't get a board member seated tonight. And I just hope that the public recognizes the difference, and that we have a board here tonight that's split. And I would ask yourself if everyone is acting in the best interests of the district tonight, or are they trying to push their personal agenda?
I ask you the same question in return.
Sure, go ahead.
That's my response.
We'll let the public be the judge.
And so here we go. What do we do next? I move that we adjourn the meeting, and
we still have an agenda
in this argument
in front of us.
We have the rest of the agenda at hand.
Right.
And that's my motion, as suggested by our attorney.
Well, in view of the fact you do have an additional, pretty comprehensive agenda.
Right, let's get to
It might be,
business.
rather than adjourning tonight's meeting, you could just call for a special meeting at a date certain that's convenient to all of you.
Okay.
Can we table the one item?
Just table it.
Correct.
Yeah, what I would suggest, if we're not going to get there tonight, is that we table it and we call a special meeting to reconsider it one more time. And then if that doesn't work, we're at the mercy of the county or costing the taxpayers a lot of money.
Yeah. I think if we go through the rest of the agenda, Michael, we could reconsider this item, and you could make your motion to either adjourn this meeting if you wanted to. You could do it both ways. You could call for a special meeting where this issue is again put before the board, or you could just adjourn tonight's meeting. I think it'd be cleaner probably if you just posted a separate agenda.
While we're on this subject, I would move that we table this until an agreed future time and move forward. Let's get back to business.
I think that's appropriate.
This is the question you were asking all the candidates, and here we are sitting on the board, the same, absolutely the same thing. And, how would you handle it? Do you dig in your heels? Do you are you intractable, I think is the word you used? Do you feel so strongly about a candidate that you're willing to, continue to go to the mat? This is exactly the thing you were asking the candidates. How would you handle it?
Well, it's pretty clear how I'm handling it tonight. That's my answer.
So when you asked that question to the other candidates, you were looking at them to be more like, oh, well, I did
No.
what's good for the district.
No, the reason I ask those questions is to see their thought processes and how they go about making a decision.
So what do you think is the good of the district? Because that was kind of like in your questioning, people had said, what's good for the district, you're.
No, I didn't incorporate that in the question.
Well, the people kind of they all kind of said it'd be, whatever, I wouldn't be so dug in that I would have to think, I would think more about what is good for the district. And we're definitely coming down to that very question. And so I think the four of us need to decide what is the good for the district.
Right.
I hate to postpone this and put it, I don't think there's going to be a lot of changing in people's minds. Yes, Paul got the third most votes. His name was the top of the ballot, which is a big advantage. You had high name recognition, as did I. We were down further on the ballot. But that ballot position gives a person a big advantage. And Tom and Al were on the bottom. So.
Right, and the fact of the matter is, and I do respect the number of votes that Mr. Coates received, but the fact of the matter is that alone is not the defining criteria for making a decision.
By far not alone.
I'd really appreciate it if you'd let me finish speaking. That alone is not the defining element in considering a candidate. And we all know it's unfortunate, but a lot of folks, because of their very busy lives, don't pay that much attention to down ballot elections, and they don't know that much about what goes on here and the quality of the individuals and their actions. And we all have personally witnessed the quality of the individuals and the actions of Tom Flowen and Gail Austin. And we know that, and they also have demonstrated, and I don't know your situation, why you haven't been coming and participating, but I do know that Tom and Gail are super dedicated members of the Water District family and super contributors, and they're both very intelligent, very thoughtful people. And Gail is a business owner. She's a woman. She has given great testimony at meetings, as has Tom after he left the board. And Tom didn't take his ball and go home. How many of us, after losing an election like that, when we'd been on the board, would have come right back in, got up off the floor, the metaphorical floor. And I know, Tom is a human being, just like I was when I was joking about the Mickey comment. We're all human beings, and he felt that loss, and he shared that he felt that loss. And, it's human to smart a little when you lose, even though you know, logically speaking, why it happened. But he walked right back in the door and was showing up at the meetings again and rejoined the Citizens Advisory Committee and is well respected by, I thought, all his fellow board members and the staff. The staff, thinks the world of Tom, and so we know that he would work very, very well with them. So he's a great compromise candidate to get us out of this place that we're mired in. And I really hope that the two of you think about that for the good of the order. And you might keep in mind that Rebecca and I actually offered 2 compromise candidates.
Three.
that were not our first choices. So I would suggest that we try to break this impasse here tonight and appoint someone to the board. And I would really, really hope, I would appeal to you. I know it got a little heated between us, Mike, because we both feel, strongly about our positions and emotional about it, but I really would appeal to you, Bob, and to you, Mike, to consider the good of this district and put that above your own, personal feelings about an individual candidate. And because we were at an impasse on our two favored candidates, my favorite candidate was Gail. Mike's was Paul. Rebecca's was Gail. And Bob's was Paul. So we split on our favorite two candidates. So at that point, the other candidates became compromise candidates. I'm just pointing out facts as we talked about tonight. That's factual. If you look at a definition of what compromise and would be.
What if we choose not to fill the seat at all and just go to the next election with 4 directors?
No, if you choose not to act within the 60-day period we've been talking about, where you enjoy that exclusive authority, that authority shifts to the Board of Supervisors, and they will have a certain amount of time to call for an election or make the appointment. I would
or a decision.
Professionally, my opinion is they'd probably make the appointment rather than put the public through the expense of an election. But that's their discussion. I've seen that done. Your authority this issue would be right before the Board of Supervisors. God, a weird thought occurred to me, and it's not a legal thought, but I wonder if any of the candidates want to withdraw their candidacy.
I've seen that happen.
Exactly. It's something that you might want to pose. I don't know. I just hope you keep pounding at this. Well, I don't know if adjourning tonight's meeting to another date, sir, is going to produce anything. But it's something like this, just to speculate on that. I just wanted to throw it out there. I think I'm still optimistic thinking everyone's going to.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that because I don't want to pressure anyone, even the candidate that I'm not supporting to withdraw. They have every right to be here and maintain their candidacy, and I very much respect that. But I do feel that we are at an impasse on our 2-2 first choices, and we have 3 other viable candidates. And so I would again appeal to the board to. I'll take any one of the 3. To break this impasse, and they're all in my mind qualified. And I think, I've heard the other 2 board members that voted nay say that if I heard it right, that Gail and Tom are qualified. So why would you not seat one of them to break this impasse and to prevent what could be a train wreck? So I would just really, really hope that Bob and Mike, that you would avoid that train wreck and do what's, I'm not trying to get you to take my top candidate. I'm trying to get you to protect the district and seat a qualified person tonight.
And it's still not possible for the public to speak?
I think it would be out of order.
Well,
you do have some discretion on that. At
this point, President Johnson, I'm thinking maybe it would be helpful for us to do.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay. Please, Karen, or Jean?
Jane. I do have.
Yes, please.
Got to go up to the podium. Yeah, Bob, before I just didn't want to do it in the middle of when we were going through all the candidates, but then I was thinking at this point, since we're at an impasse, maybe we could all hear from them and be influenced by them.
Yes, he did. He was a little offended.
Again, I'm Jane Jarlsberg, a resident of Joshua Tree, and I love this place. I'm really happy I'm here tonight, crazily enough. What I wanted to say earlier, and I neglected to say it when I was up here before, was that I know Gail from the community, and that almost every meeting I ever went to, and I'm pretty active in a number of meetings, she's there. She was one of the first people that I spoke to when you were contemplating raising the price, the rates, and she explained it. It was at a Chamber of Commerce mixer where we were in a round table, and we're all like, are they trying to do to us? Everybody, we're poor. I mean, most of us are low income. And she explained very carefully, very thoroughly, very smartly, intelligently to the people around the table, who are just folks, why we need to do it. And it totally made sense, and it gave me information to then pass on to other people I talked to. And that's one of the reasons that I think that she would be good. She is in the public. She's reachable, approachable. I see Rebecca a lot too, but I don't really know you other folks from the community. And so I just wanted to say that. That's what I should have said earlier.
All right, with that, General Manager, where do I go?
We can certainly make a motion to table it for now and move forward at a different meeting, or we can carry on the process. I mean, I would only caution, if we were to come back here again to an impasse at the next meeting, it would certainly put us up against a time frame where we couldn't come back from that, so.
Is there any, bottom line question, is there any value in continuing adjourning tonight's meeting, in your opinion?
I think it might give us an opportunity to reevaluate. I certainly don't want to put the district at odds, and we certainly do know it through the expense of going through a special election. I do not think there are any compromise candidates, so I take offense to that. And that being said, I would like to come back personally.
And that was Mr. Director Reynolds' motion earlier to adjourn tonight's, table this matter, adjourn this particular matter, this meeting, for that item tonight. You can continue with the rest of the meeting.
President Johnson, I'm just curious, and I'm sorry you take offense because I meant no offense, but I'm curious why you wouldn't consider any of the other candidates a compromise.
Well, I too, with Director Reynolds, I'm wondering why you are so adamant about your choices and not open to another candidate as a compromise. And I find it to be sort of dogmatic in terms of the way that this is being going. I certainly want to do what's best for the district. I certainly have voted for these people and advocated for these people in the past. I'm not particularly swayed one way or the other. I'm looking at the process, and I just want it to be equitable. And I think if people are engaged with the electoral process, that they should be given their due and go through the process. I don't care where you are on the ballot, fold or above the fold or first or second. And that certainly merits something in my opinion, whether they're attending a meeting or not. Happy to retirement, welcome to there, Frank, to retirement. Hopefully this is in the right direction. But compromise candidates, I do not think we have any.
Well, do you not consider the other candidates viable, qualified candidates?
I think in the best interest of time and energy, it might do us well to at least put this maybe on the tail end of this agenda. If we want to come back and visit it in an hour when we're done doing other business, we have other business at hand. And if that's appropriate, we can do that, or we can table it until another time.
So you're not willing to answer that question?
Do we have viable candidates? Yes, we have 4 very viable candidates. Unfortunately, there's not somebody from District 3, which I told you was my preference to be able to appoint that person this evening. The other only viable candidate that we have here is Mr. Coate, who has said that he would be willing to run in the next election, which is up in a couple months. I would love to see Tom Florin run. Unfortunately, both of them are not in District 3. So I'm back to the districting thing. The other of the candidates that are there, I'm the only one that at this point in time would have somebody running against me. I'm fair with that, if indeed I choose to come back. So that being said, I would entertain a motion to put this item on the end of the agenda, and we'll visit it tonight, and if not, then we'll come back again. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, let's continue this battle then. May I have the floor, please?
Please.
I have a question that may be uncomfortable, but I'm beginning to notice that perhaps you have a reason that you choose not to recognize Mr. Coate. You say, well, we're positioned on a ballot, and I tend to think, well, maybe not, I don't know. But he did get the most votes. He does have the most experience. He does have the most experience in water. He has the most experience as a board member. He has past experience on this board, a lot of past experience on this board. And yet I see a steadfast no on the two directors to my left, and so I ask you to consider, searching yourself. Why do you feel so strongly against the person that we're suggesting? Is it something personal? Is it something personal to me? Is it something personal to the director, or is it something, I think there's more to the story than we're actually hearing.
Well, I would feel I would ask you the same question about Gail Austin.
Okay. And
why are you so resistant?
Why am I so resistant? Because there's clearly one candidate that has the most experience, that has the most support from the voters recently, that has the most water experience, that is looking into the future, and I think he's asked and answered again.
And there's clearly two candidates that have been participating in the district's affairs consistently over months and years, that actually have more recent and experience than the candidate that you're putting forward, and they have also demonstrated their competency and their quality as individuals. And again, my choice was voted down. Your choice was voted down.
And you have eluded my question as to, is there a reason that you're not considering this person?
Well,
you've eluded it. I'm putting you right on the hot seat. Answer the question, please.
Well, Mike, I don't have to answer questions at your direction, but I will answer the question. And Mr. Coates has, even though he has the qualifications, I know there have been issues that Director Unger described about consistency of participation and performance and loyalty to the district. And I also, except for during the run-up to the election, Mr. Coates was not present and did not participate. And while the other folks consistently participated not only in board meetings, but on the Citizens Advisory Committee, attended committee meetings, testified, volunteered at the farmers market. The proof is in the pudding with me. So I am answering the question. The proof is in the pudding, and they're both fully able candidates. And we even have one that has recent board experience that showed that Mickey Leckman, bless her heart, and I think about her every day. She stated it very clearly. Tom was the best director, including all of us, that she'd ever worked with, in her opinion. And Mickey was one heck of a person. And while I didn't always agree with her either, most of the time we did agree, I admired the hell out of her, and she was a wonderful individual. She made tough decisions when they needed to be made for the benefit of the district. And I really do believe if she was here tonight, she would be on the side of compromise and choosing a candidate that, if we had a deadlock between two candidates, then she's the kind of person that would recognize that and move to a candidate that we could hopefully all agree on for the benefit of this district. She loved this district. She would never let a situation like this happen where I know that I really do believe, and I can't speak for her because she's gone, but I really do believe that she would agree that if the board is split between two candidates, then the thing you do is you look for another candidate that you can agree upon. And if you've said that those other candidates are qualified and you know they'll break the impasse, why would we not all respect the fact that we disagree with each other? You feel strongly about my choice as I feel about yours, so why don't we set those aside and pick someone else for the good of the district? And so I answered your question. I
Can I answer the allegations that are against me? Now that he's brought them up?
No, out of order, please.
Yeah, I didn't make allegations. I just simply stated.
You said that I wasn't president, that I left and I didn't participate. There's a reason for non-participation. How about a 10-hour-a-day job with an hour and 20-minute drive each way for a 2-hour and 40-minute drive, on top of a 10-hour work day for 5.5 years? I managed a water system from smoke to fire.
So,
We'll put a motion on the floor that we table this item until the end of the agenda and proceed with our regular business and readdress that at the end of our business meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Call for the discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
All those opposed? Oh, I guess I have it. Thank you very much. We'll come back to this and give us a little time to breathe. Item number 8.
Mr. Johnson, would it be possible to take a 5-minute break?
Sure, let's do that.
That would be good.
Thank you.
I'm going to move to item number 8, and this is approved resolution 19-01006, amending the administration code to appoint the general manager as board secretary. And is that Susan Greer?
Interesting, we're now past 1,000 resolutions that the district has issued in its, existence, so that's kind of interesting. This item tonight is in regards to our general manager's departure, so we're now left without a board secretary. And in lieu of having to do this housekeeping matter every single time a new general manager comes, we are instead recommending that we amend the administration code with resolution 1006 so that this is automatically handled each time, whether they're a regular, a temporary, an acting, whatever their role is as general manager, that they will assume automatically the responsibilities of the board secretary. So while our general manager retains that title, their work, in fact, is largely delegated to their executive assistant. So the Water Code addresses this topic and says that the board is supposed to appoint a secretary as well as a general manager and an auditor, and that the general manager and secretary can be the same person. So this is all as stipulated in the Water Code. The recommended changes will add section 4.08 to our current administration code and details all of the requirements of the job. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. The recommendation is that we approve this resolution and eliminate this housekeeping matter in the future.
I think this is business as usual. It was alluded to with the appointment of General Manager interim Van. So I would entertain a motion to...
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Hang on, here we go.
I wanted to find out after, before we recessed, during what went on, the general manager still wants to be board So I will vote aye. I haven't heard him shout.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved, so done. Back to the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, Beverly, do you have an oath of office for?
Yes.
You're authorized to administer the oath of office to Mark.
Well, we have to do that?
Well, yeah, he has to take the
Let's
oath
do
of
it.
office. It's an
All right.
officer.
Let's take advantage while we're all
Can
getting
I
along.
ask Ms. Johnson I'm supposed to do this? Will you stand and raise your right hand,
Yes.
please?
You can just read after Robert's.
Your name, please?
I, Mark Van,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
and defend the Constitution of the United States
and defend the Constitution of
And
the
the-
United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United
and
States
the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and that I take this obligation freely
and that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully
the
discharge
duties upon which I'm about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you, sir.
I state your name.
I guess you stay in there, Gary.
Good, I'm glad.
Public hearing, item number 9. Is that, Ms. Segura, at this time,
It
the board
is.
will conduct public hearing to discuss the input and comments considering the dissolution of improvement districts 1 and 2.
Right. The process of dissolving the improvement districts began back in June when we adopted the resolutions of intention to dissolve the improvement districts. Then those notices were published in the newspaper to afford anyone interested the opportunity to appear tonight to talk about this subject. I don't assume there's anyone in the audience about that. This is largely a non-issue. The purpose of improvement districts is to issue debt. So you create an obligation, a legal obligation with certain property owners within that improvement district area. And that authorizes the county tax collector to add those assessments to their individual property tax bills every year. So just as there is a formal process to establish an improvement district, there's a public hearing process on the front end, there is a public hearing process on the back end to dissolve the improvement districts. I was not here in the 60s and the 70s when these improvement districts were formed. I didn't really understand those kinds of requirements. So we learned about this quite by accident, really, and it's a housekeeping matter, really, at this point. The debt for improvement district number 1 was paid off, if I'm remembering, 1996. And ID number 2 was paid off early in 2013, saving nearly $20,000 in interest. So the resolutions to dissolve, again, are really housekeeping matters at this point. There is no purpose nor reason for the improvement districts for many years. And so, we're here to receive any comments from the public if they oppose the dissolution of the improvement districts, and if not, then we want to adopt the 2 resolutions, and there is a separate one for each of the improvement districts. So Resolution 19-999 and 19-1000. So with that, we probably should open we've received the staff report, I guess, so now it's board questions. Tells us the order to go here, so.
All right, board have any questions? Public hearing, received public comments, if any? Well, that's good. Close the public comments.
Go for it.
Board discussion and action. I'll entertain a motion to dissolve districts 1.
I'll make that motion.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion is to approve the resolutions.
Approve the resolution, excuse me.
Can you do both of them, both of these special districts at the same time, or does it have to be two motions or 2 votes?
Do you know, Gil?
You have it as 2 items on the agenda?
No, 1 item, but 2 resolution numbers.
You can approve them together.
Thank you, Tom. All right, with that, I have a motion and I have a second.
I'm a little bit attached to number 1, monument 1.
You like some improvements in the area?
Because I live there.
Okay.
Tongue in cheek. I'm all in favor of dissolution of the ID number 1 and 2 of the resolution.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved, so done. Item 10, approve resolution 19-004, amending rules and regulations to modify meter quote fee criteria and eliminate backflow cross-connection fee.
So the recommendation, again, is to approve the resolution tonight. Remember back in March, I brought several new fees, new and updated fees to you, dozens of them, in fact. And a couple of them we want to revisit now. So the new meter quote fee was approved, allowing for one free quote per month. And I initially developed that assuming that that's what the board and/or the general manager would want. After discussion with the general manager and then, concluding with our mantra, which is that development pays its own way, it doesn't make sense that we would provide free meter quotes when there's a cost to the district in doing so. General Manager Sauer at the time agreed with that proposal, that we would eliminate that one freebie, if you will, and in the final report that never got deleted. So it went through without really the recommendation of staff, and we want to clean that up at this point in time. Also important to note that the vast majority of meter quotes that we provide do not result in new meters for the water district. So this is a service. To give one free to each developer per month is really, promoting their speculative, endeavors. So that's the first thing. The existing language is in here, and then the recommendation is below on page 57. Thus far, all the meter quotes that we've provided were in the queue already at that point in time. It takes months, to get to the point when you're getting a quote. There's a lot of discussion goes in first. So the recommendation is that, any that have paid inadvertently, we would refund those or credit their accounts if an account is set up, and that would be the process for fixing that and then charging everybody on a going forward basis. So then the second piece is the reaffirmation of the Backflow cross-connection device fee charge, which is set and has been set for, my goodness, 10, 15 years, I would imagine at this point, at $25 a year. Kurt, Manager Sauer, and I were kind of ambivalent about whether the fee was right or wrong, and we just decided to leave it in. It had been in there for some time, although we had been directed by a prior general manager not to charge the fee, and it hasn't been charged for a decade or more. The issue now is that there is no history to demonstrate to us what the cost of running this program is. We have not been appropriately allocating our cost to, the right general ledger account so that we can say, there's the cost of the program, and then we know how to develop our fee. We've also made a significant change in operations so that we are contracting with a third party vendor to do a lot of this work that was administrative before, so our cost has been dramatically reduced. That's about $500 a year to this third-party vendor. We're guesstimating another $500 or so in cost. That's $1,000 of cost. Divided amongst roughly 200 Backflow customers is $5 each. There's no way we have cost to support a $25 fee, and there's no way that billing someone $5 a year is cost effective for the district. It costs more than that to generate and collect the bill. So what Manager Ban and I have determined is the best strategy going forward is that we will do a better job. We will start doing a better job of collecting what those costs are. As an example, we have an employee who has to have Backflow certification. He has to have specific training, and there are certification costs associated with that. Those are costs of running this program. That's why he has the Backflow certification. So we will do a better job collecting these costs going forward. It will help us determine when and if it makes sense to collect a fee. We also know that nobody else locally charges a Backflow fee. So it's deemed by some agencies to be, a cost that should be borne by all ratepayers, as this protects the water quality in the water district. So anyway, existing language is there. Our recommendation is that we just eliminate this requirement altogether at this point in time, start tracking costs going forward, and then determine when and if it makes sense to charge a fee here. So change the meter quote fee to eliminate the freebie, eliminate the Backflow cross-connection fee.
Okay. Board comments? This was thoroughly vetted at the finance committee, I'd say.
I have a couple of questions.
Sir?
Just to clarify, this is to lose the backflow fee,
Yes.
but to retain or gain the estimate fee.
To not allow one free meter quote per month per developer. That's what the
Okay.
current language is.
Okay, and the rationale is that it costs us money to do that estimate?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Now-
The fee is $19.
The fee, $19, so it's not a lot.
Right.
Now, what's involved with getting a contractor that quote?
I mean, we have to look at the GIS, we have to look at maps, we have to see where the pipeline is, are they adjacent, are they in the H zone, are they, is there a refund agreement applicable? There are many, many steps to this process. There are different quotes depending on where you are in the district, because different factors apply. If you're in the H zone, there's an H zone reimbursement fee. If you're in Copper Mountain, there's a whole different set of fees, so it's a complex process.
Okay, does it include even driving out to the site and looking at
It can, if there's something complex or the map maybe isn't clear, yes. And then there's a written document that's created for them. There's an exchange back and forth between, our staff and the requester, and
I
so,
see.
yeah.
What do you
there's quite
think
a bit.
the man-hours would be to produce that document, the quote,
I don't know at this time. My records would reflect that.
approximately?
I would guess it's probably half hour, just based on the number.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for $19, they're getting quite a bit.
And it's all, again, it's based on time and materials. That's how fees are developed. So my records would reflect that.
Right.
I'm sorry, I wasn't
Now, if they
prepared
were
with
to
that.
just call on the phone and say, what did it cost to get a meter about, would that incur a
Well,
cost?
there's some generic information
Uh-huh.
available on our website, so it gives you sort of a range of quotes. But, if you give me a generic question, then I'm going to give you a generic response. And so, we're cautious about that because people don't remember that this was just an estimate. This was a range of number,
Oh, I've seen that before.
Yeah.
You said,
Absolutely. They remember the low number, not the range.
course.
So, yeah. So we're careful with that because people are making decisions based on this information. I'm going to buy that parcel or not. It's $20,000 for a water meter or it's, $6,000. Those are differences. So,
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other comments, questions? Entertain a motion?
No, I was just hoping to hear from our expert on the board, and I heard from him, so. On the backflow cross-connection devices, I was curious about, Director Reynolds, if you had any thoughts about that. Does it seem reasonable to eliminate that fee from your perspective?
when I first heard about the backflow was before I was first a board member, and I was unpleasantly shocked. But I got to tell you, I have a different perspective, on what it costs to do things. I have researched in depth on what it takes to get the backflow certification because I could incorporate that in my personal world, and so it's not that bad. But it is steps
it's money.
and it's money and it's time, and then for someone that's not in the water agency, there's a potential for value. Here in the water agency, how do you charge a customer for that? And so by eliminating that makes it a little, I can go both ways. But I'm also privy to your recommendation on this one. And so with that, I support it.
And the one thing I heard you say, Susan, that made me want to support it, and I agree, is that this does protect everybody's water in the district. So in that sense, it's a benefit
For
to all
all.
the ratepayers,
Absolutely.
right?
And people that have this device, they also, every year they have to have it
Tested,
certified,
certified, yes.
So they've already.
They have to pay for that.
They're already paying for it, yeah.
It's
they
a
won't
hassle.
benefit.
But I have seen water backflow. My own eyes, I have seen water go backwards, and I was going, wow, that's so cool. And then I started thinking about, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
what if? You know, what if somebody was watering a plant, and that plant had strong insecticide in it, and a backflow condition occurred, and that goes right into your drinking water? Yeah, backflow is important. Those little vacuum breakers on the garden hose bib, that is a law, is important, and I used to hate those too. And so I have changed my opinion.
All right, I'm good.
I move that we approve resolution number 19-1004, amending rules and regulations to modify meter quote fee criteria and eliminate backflow cross-connection fee.
Second on that?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved, so done. Item 11, consideration of contract with Atkinson, Adelson, Loya, Rudd, and Romo, AALR, to provide employment and labor counsel for the district. That's Ms. Johnson?
Yes, sir. We're now calling them a lawyer.
That sounds pretty nice.
So tonight, we bring to consideration for this contract, to contract with AALRR. We have upcoming negotiations with the union, and we need an attorney to help represent the district's interests. We've contracted in the past with Liebert Cassidy Whitmore. Steve Berliner was our lead counsel. He's no longer able to represent the district, so that prompted us to start looking elsewhere. I actually met the attorney that we're recommending. His name is Nate Kowalski at Aqua Conference, and had the pleasure to speak with him a couple of other times. And then Mark and I went and actually interviewed him, and we think he'd be an absolute great fit to help us through this process and for any future labor needs. Everything is pretty much outlined. He has a really great track record. The firm has a very strong reputation. The costs are slightly less from LTW, so that's a benefit. They've provided us the mileage rate, so from their offices to the district from the Riverside office rather than the Cerritos office, so that's also cost savings. And so far, we've been pleased with what we've learned and the few topics that we've had the opportunity to talk with them about. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I've had the briefing. I think everything is, the presentation that I received in the Finance Committee with Ms. Johnson was more than detailed, and I find no issues with this. I think it's a good move.
I do as well.
Yes. All right, take a motion, of course.
I've had the briefing as well, and I enjoyed hearing that they were engaged and returned calls rapidly, and were on target. And so that, and including with the recommendation, I'm good too.
All right, public comment?
Tom Flown and Joshua Tree North. I thought the thing was very detailed, this contract pile is very detailed. I was also somewhat pleased. This is sort of in Sarah's milieu, I guess would be a word, where it's very specific about assigning responsibilities for liabilities of all kinds, even people that are working for the attorney in some sub-position of some kind. Every legal aid person and anybody else, they've got to show proof of insurance on everybody that's working for them on this deal, and I was pleased to see that too. I was intrigued by, on page 65 of 79, it says document retention and destruction. I'll just read it so nobody has to dig. That's for Bob's camera too. It says, after a file on a matter is closed, client has the right to request the law firm to return file to client. Absent such a request, the law firm shall retain the file on client's behalf for a period of 5 years. Following that time period, the law firm will destroy such files. Now, it's kind of in this day of information control and privacy and all that stuff, is what would we do? Are we going to request all that stuff back right away, or let it lay over there for 5 years or so?
Are you referring to the previous attorney, to this attorney? Or
Well, it's.
Their files,
Their
it sounds
files.
like their files.
Yeah, their files on us.
they have files, but we also maintain all of those files as well, so it's just their copies of the same records that we have.
And so are we going to request those copies of the records back from them when we're done using them, or are we going to
We
let
plan
them?
to let this be a long-term relationship, that's the goal.
Indeed.
We've been with Liebert Cassidy Whitmore for probably 10, 15 years, and we don't want to switch attorneys regularly when it comes to this, because you need that continuity of service when it comes to your labor relations. So we hope, if everything works out well and the personalities click and we're getting the service that we need, that it'll be a long-term relationship. But if we did close, then yes, we would probably request the files, and if they're HR related, they would just be, filed in a locked cabinet.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Not hearing none, then I'll entertain a motion in a second.
I move that the Board of Directors approve the attached agreement between Joshua Basin Water District and AALRR to provide employment and labor counsel for the district.
All right, second. Thank you, Director Reynolds. And with that, I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye? Aye. So moved, so done. Item number 12. Board to consider approving delivery and recharge of up to 1,600 acre-feet of water for the water storage agreement between Mojave Water Agency and Water in Joshua Basin Water District.
Thank you, President Johnson, members of the board. The district has taken its allotted 800 acre-feet this year. That wrapped up last week. And we now have the opportunity to start taking conjunctive use water or water per the storage agreement that we have with Mojave Water Agency. That water would actually be stored in our basin and delivered at no charge today. However, there's a commitment based on today's dollars of about $829,600 worth of water that would be installed today to meet future allotments. And so the purpose of this water is if later on down the road, say 3-4 years, we go through another drought spell, the district wants to obtain 1,000 acre-feet of water. Mojave only has enough to meet, say, 500 acre-feet of that. 500 acre-feet can be debited from this Mojave storage water account and added to our allotment that we would purchase at that current pricing. Another portion of this agreement allows the district to take on 15% worth of shrinkage water. And so out of that 1,600 acre-feet, the district would receive about 240 acre-feet. That would be credited to our reserves at no charge. And so we'd be looking at storing about 1,360 acre-feet worth of banked water if current flows stay the way they are, which are bound to change. That completes my report. I'll be happy to answer.
I think this is a item that we've discussed somewhat at length, and I certainly think it's a long-term investment for the district.
Yeah, I recall when three of us on the board made the decision to approve this agreement, and with the rest of the board members, it was unanimous, and I was a big proponent of it, and I still am, and I'm really excited that we finally got the opportunity to take advantage of it. It's so great to get that water into our aquifer and kind of get it in the bank, so to speak. And also the fact that we, arguably get 15% of it at no cost. So I'm definitely in favor of moving forward with the delivery of the water as soon as it can be brought to us.
Thank you. The 15%, it isn't actually going to end up being 15%, but close to. What was the estimated actual water loss?
Through things like evaporation, no greater than 2%.
2%, so 13% potential of free water. I remember when the first thought of banking water came years and years and years ago, and it was brilliant. Why didn't we think of this before? It only makes sense. In times of excess water, what do you do with this water? Where do we put it? We got to find a place for it. How do we make it of value and make it valuable for both parties? The thought of banking was just absolutely a brilliant idea. I remember I was at the Mojave Water Agency when they first thought of it. Gosh, this was probably in 2008. There was lots of water back then. The lakes were full and things were wonderful, and that changed. As that changed, the allocations reduced. And no matter what, we're going to use the water. And so we already have that water now by banking it with Mojave Water Agency. It's a win-win situation. We don't pay for it today. We've got the water in the bank for tomorrow. However, it's my understanding that when we do buy that water, it's at current market value. You need to understand that. Still, we're going to buy the water anyway, and we're going to withdraw from that bank in times we're going to need it. We'll be willing to pay the current market value anyway. Win-win. I see no reason not to say absolutely gung-ho, let's go.
All right, any other discussion?
When will you be getting the water?
We'll start immediately, yeah.
Like tomorrow?
Yeah.
Well, let's get a move on that.
I have one more, if I may.
Sure.
The term negative draft, and that is the water is stored in an aquifer, and we've been historically using more water than we're returning, even at the rate that we're purchasing now. So think about the water level in our aquifer. It's still declining, and by accepting this banking, not only is it good financially, but it could be very good ecologically as well. I forgot to mention that. Another reason.
Yep, Jane Jarlsberg again. I wanted to say it sounds like an event that should be celebrated. I'm hoping that it will be publicly announced because it really sounds positive, and that, you know, anything positive coming out of here is great. So I was going to say a party or something, or is there an actual event when the water gets dumped into the aquifer? But if it's happening tomorrow, then obviously it's a little quick. But yeah, I think there should be a celebration, a public announcement, hopefully in the paper and stuff too.
Tom Flo and Joshua Tree North. This isn't new. I was scoping around in some documents from Mojave Water Agency and noticed that they mentioned it in one of their reports in 1994 or 1995. I'm not sure which now. 94, I think. So this concept has been in their minds for quite a while. I was kind of curious about. On page, I've done this again, I enjoy reading the tests sometimes. On page 73 of 79, there's a line in there that says, the Mojave Water Agency, they use the abbreviation, Mojave Water Agency will be responsible for recording and maintaining the storage water in the account, subject to the review and approval of the Joshua Basin Water District. I'm kind of intrigued by the part that it says they're responsible for maintaining storage in the water account.
It's more the amount of water that's there, and so they're responsible for metering. They bill us off their metering. That's how we get our quantity at the end of the day, even though we'd like to use our meter sometimes. But yeah, that's how that account is maintained, is through Mojave using their meters.
But Mark and I have already spoken about how we will maintain the records on our side, because, you know, I'm just like that. Yeah.
And I enjoy that.
Yeah.
Part of your character, I really do. Thank you.
All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
All right, and I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, so moved, so done. Item 13, council report.
Mr. Chairman, just as a matter of general interest, SB 307, that's the legislative measure that pretty much targeted the Cadiz project. It made it to the Assembly last Thursday. It's on the way to the governor's desk. And that's a serious roadblock to a project such as the Cadiz project. It's going to subject it to another state review, independent review for environmental impacts. Not just adverse effects to the natural environment, but actually cultural impacts. It's a serious roadblock. It's noteworthy. I don't think you have any direct interest in that measure, but it is of great interest to the local community and the statewide.
This board has taken a position against it.
Yeah.
Did you take a position
Yeah,
on that? Or that it's of direct interest
Yeah,
to
we're
you?
on the record as opposed to Cadiz.
Yeah, it passed the
Community-wide.
that's been on the move for years. Serious discussions and political fighting, if you will, at the legislative level. A lot of money on lobbying, and finally, it's gotten to the governor's desk. It's quite noteworthy.
3 large water agencies are interested in that.
Oh, yeah, everybody's interested in it.
They want the water.
Yeah.
President Johnson.
So we don't know where the future lies on this thing. But I haven't heard today, I checked today before I came up here, and the governor had not signed it yet. I have no reason to believe he won't sign it, but that remains to be seen. And then the whole process of the secondary independent review by state body agencies will take place, and I could defer a lot of things. Internally, just my instincts tell me that there's going to be some litigation flowing from that legislation. Maybe due process issues, things like that, I suspect. We'll see.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a brief comment and say that the organization I work for, the Mojave Desert Land Trust, was in support of this measure. And as Rebecca said, the board voted to oppose the Cadiz project. And a big reason for that was the potential impacts on desert groundwater and desert resources. And if Cadiz got through, that model could have been replicated elsewhere. And when, cities start looking to groundwater that took sometimes tens of thousands of years to accumulate underneath the desert, then that's going to have very significant effects on desert ecology, desert landscapes, and potentially desert human dwellers. So both in my role as a member of this board and as the executive director of the Mojave Desert Land Trust, I sought to advance anything that would prevent this project from going forward. And the language, what I was surprised about is the language in the bill is very simple, very straightforward, and it's very strong language, protective language. It essentially says, and maybe Gil's got it there, but it essentially says that if a proposed project of this nature would impact desert resources, it can't go forward. That's essentially what it says. And legislation usually doesn't get through that's
specific,
that clean and that clear, and that sets such a high bar for when you can do something like that.
This independent state review has got to make a determination that the project itself, before it becomes operable, will not adversely affect, this has caught my attention, Gary, will not affect the natural, here's what got or cultural resources of those federal and state lands. There's Indian territory out there.
Right,
And
so
that does another issue
the project
into the environmental process.
That's a very high bar.
So Gary, it was really short and right to the point, but its implications are just like this. Enormous.
Yeah, they are. They are, and that's why there probably will be.
So stay tuned, we'll see what the gov does. And
yeah, assuming the governor signs it, right.
Yes.
But for our deserts, I think we can all breathe a huge sigh of relief.
Yes, right.
Well, there's a lot of divided opinion on this, as you know, if you read the newspapers.
Well, and I do agree, there are a lot of districts that, in urban areas that really want water, but there are a number of ways that we can address water issues in urban areas, and I would not want to sacrifice our natural and cultural resources in desert communities in order to meet those water needs. I think we have to find a better way if we look at the greater good.
I just thought I'd bring it up because it came out last Thursday. General interest only. But it does directly point to the fact you've taken a position on it. That's interesting. I wasn't aware of
Yeah,
that.
we did indeed. Rebecca brought it to the board.
I didn't remember that.
All right, any other items?
No, sir.
We'll move on to item 14, General Manager's Report.
Just a quick comment that the Saddleback project, the water main replacement project, is gearing up, and we have a ribbon cutting ceremony scheduled for August 13th. So, more media to follow from Kathleen.
Congratulations, staff.
Was that at 9
Thank you.
o'clock?
Congratulations, all of us. Tentatively right now, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
What time?
It's 9 or 9:30, but Kathleen will send out the final invite. I think she's still waiting for a couple folks to respond.
And get those sandwich boards that say your rates and fees at work.
Right, absolutely, yep. She is working on that now.
All right.
All right, is there anything else?
That's it for me.
Item 15, Director's Comments, Reports on Meetings Attended. We had the Citizens Advisory Committee report. Tom, anything additional? No? Okay. Public outreach, Kathleen will certainly fill us in on that. July 10th, we had a riveting finance meeting, and anybody that's interested certainly missed a good one. Water Resources on the 10th, Director Hunn and Reynolds.
Yeah, I was actually out of town, so Director Unger covered for me.
Okay, and...
As stated in the agenda.
Excuse me. And Mojave Water Agency on the 11th was a pretty exciting meeting for me in a number of respects, and I'm sure that you all want to hear about it. And in the interest of time, I will only do a wave top here, but there was, considering resolutions, they had their finance people there. And I know that's always riveting to everybody else, but the resolution on how they were going to do a statement on investment policy and rescinding resolution for their funds. But in a nutshell, basically, the investment manager came in and talked about how the economy will be on a sort of a slow pace coming about within the next year, and how that impacts interest rates. And of course, we know the feds are talking about dropping the rates, and that's all great for most of us consumers. But if you're in the money business, money's designed to make money.
Absolutely.
And if money's not making money, then it's not working. So that is always intriguing, and Mojave Water Agency basically was looking for places to invest their money with the highest point of return in the yield. And if it hasn't already happened, it was probably too late.
Yeah.
So, that being said, there was a little history, which we have some of our reserves and money in the LAIF account. And the historical narrative on that is that with the rates going to where they're going down, that the return from some of the investments may see a zero yield, which they said happened in 2007, 2008. It was pretty marginal. But at the same time, the liquidity of the fund is, there, and the security of the fund is there. So they're still moving forward with about 65% of their monies back in the LAIF. So I think that's encouraging for our staff. We're right on target with that. So that was sort of the good news from the Finance Committee perspective. And if you're going to be in the real estate market, it may be a good time to look at refinancing and looking for some interest rates. But it will also have an impact on us with property taxes. So if that comes through, that may be a little bit of a shortfall for us. So just, where that is. But I thoroughly enjoyed this meeting, as you can probably gather. So with that,
And the President Johnson, it didn't make it on the agenda because it was so long ago, actually. But I went to a Mojave meeting on June 27th.
Oh, my goodness,
I
okay.
know. And I just wanted to say, they talked a lot about their very visionary water banking that they're doing. And it's actually using because they say our land, our desert lands are really, we don't have agricultural runoff. We don't have, pesticides and stuff. We don't have all the urban runoff, that we actually, our ground is pretty clean. So they're even looking at ground underneath the aqueduct to start banking. And so they've actually, but it's very ambitious. They actually voted on to put out a request for proposals for people to do a feasibility study on this, because they've been, Lance and Tony have been talking about this at all the different meetings. It's really interesting, and they are pursuing it. They're looking for all kinds of places to bank water. So we're on a beginning there. Who knows how much we could even bank further? So they're really looking back. And this real quick, Director Jeanette Hayhurst, she went to some kind of San Bernardino County, some local group meeting, was in Barstow a couple days before this meeting, and it was targeting the alfalfa farmers out there to start growing hemp. Now that hemp has been taken off as like a Schedule I drug, whatever, saying that, and this has been a problem for them out there. A lot of the different areas that Mojave has control over, that people are still farming these crops that take a lot of water. And Jim Ventura has talked about it a lot. How do we get these people, get them off of alfalfa, in the desert? And made the point that for a field, it can take 5 to 6 acre-feet of water for alfalfa to 2 to 3 max to growing hemp. And hemp has uses, all kinds of stuff. And so she said it could be a year or two before the right regulations are all in place, but they're definitely looking to help their folks out there get a new cash crop.
Interesting.
So that was it. Thank you.
I'll do one other item too.
I've got one too, but I can wait.
Yeah, I got one.
State water project, basically for those that have been following this, is on a hold. And it looks like the new project with all of the new legislation that's coming in and the planning, maybe 2020, and they've just, the design on this thing has changed from 2 tunnels to 1 tunnel, and the governor certainly has gone in that, but Mojave's invested in that, and they will keep us appraised. Director Hunt?
Yeah, I attended special districts leadership training, and luckily enough, it was in Napa, California, so I really lucked out, but believe it or not, I was ready to come home after 3 days to Joshua Tree. So but Napa's nice. It's a beautiful place. I'm going to keep it really brief because it's been such a long meeting tonight, but it was excellent training. It was some of the best training I've ever been to. And the spiral-bound notebook that I got contains invaluable information, and I would actually like to talk with staff about maybe making some copies to share with the other board members, and maybe one for staff. There was great stuff on governance, on finances, on communications, and other topics that were just so spot on, and the instructors were so top-notch. I was really, really impressed with the Association of Special Districts and the training that they put on. So I thank the district and my fellow board members for the opportunity to attend that training.
That is a worthwhile, I went through it 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. And I was just thinking that I'd like to go for a refresher course myself. Back then, it was 3 spiral notebooks, and they're still not dusting up in my library.
Excellent.
Item 16, future director meetings and training opportunities, Mojave Water Agencies, July 25th. That's Director Hun. Our meeting for the board here on August 7th has been canceled, and we'll wait to hear what happens. Finance Committee is August 14th at 9 o'clock, and Water Resources the same day at 10:30. So with that being said, I will move us back to item 7. For discussion about the vacancy.
Gail, you still there?
Yes, I am. And I did take a peek at the law, and I want to let you know that if you don't take an action within the 60-day period, it goes to the Board of Supervisors. You're aware about that, but I was concerned about the time frame. They have 30 days to either make the appointment. It's only 30 days after you give it to them to make the appointment or call for an election. And if they do neither, because they're too busy to take this into consideration, it comes back to the district, and you have to call an election. I just read the law. Just want to let you be aware of that. It might influence your decision-making.
I will report that the last special election that was held by the district was decades ago. We moved to coincide our election process with the general election, which is much cheaper. That cost was in excess of $20,000 2 decades ago. So you don't get to share. No one else shares in the costs with you, which is what happens with the general election. So you pay 100% of all the costs associated with the election.
Well, with that, I'll open it up for discussion.
So we go on to, is it? Go to
Nominations
step 2,
or?
Step 2 public comment, director's comments, where do you
I'd like to start with discussion for director's comments on the applicants and move toward a motion toward filling the vacancy.
You could invite a motion, just like you did before. You had plenty of
Got
time.
a little time to.
You could have some discussion.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to nominate Tom Flowen for appointment, and I would this time use the term as an alternate candidate to the two that we voted on, that neither one was voted in because of two of the board members wanting one candidate and two wanting another candidate. And so I'll make a motion that we appoint Tom Flowen to the board of directors.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion on that? Well, I will say that this has been an arduous, painful process, and I too am cognizant of the fact that we need to do what's best for the district. And I've taken issue with some of the verbiage. I wish that there were other vacancies. I will also support Tom Flowen, and that being said is that I think for the good of the district at this junction, I do not want to see us go through a general election, although I do respect Director Coate with his vast areas of expertise, and I think they are extremely needed at this point, Frank. I acquiesce on my stance with this for the good of the district. I think Tom is a capable candidate, and I think he will serve us well. I encourage you to be in the 2020 election. I will see you there, but I think that this is sort of a circular process, and I think Tom would serve us well. So I would make that comment, and I will entertain a motion. Have a motion, I have a second, and I will call for the vote.
Can I just make a
Please.
comment? I just want to say, are you Frank or Paul? I kind of know you, Frank. If Frank had been nominated tonight, I would work with Frank, happily serve with Frank. Frank gets elected in 2020, and I'm still on the board. With everything published, I will serve with Frank, I will work with Frank.
I will run.
And you will run. And I appreciate you very much, President Johnson.
I appreciate the board, and I think that the public sees that we take this serious. We want to do the right thing, and the right thing, I believe, is being done. With that, I'll entertain the motion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
You still got to vote your conscience. Doesn't that feel good?
I'm glad we settled it.
I am too. Thank you so much.
I would like to invite Director Sloan to come up. And I think this is a responsibility of the general manager, is this not?
Sure.
Sorry.
Where do you want me? Have to face the camera, I believe.
I know.
Stage manager.
Please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Thomas Flowen,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter. So help me.
Welcome aboard.
I'll do some good work. Pardon my back,
Tom.
Bob.
Tom, make sure you don't leave. You have to do your I-9.
Tom, you want to take your place?
Yes, I did.
You still have your name tag, Tom?
It was confiscated.
Oh.
I have it.
I have it.
All right, with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. So second? Second. All those in favor? Aye.
No, just kidding.
All right. So adjourned.
That was a long one.